the sky. But the earth keeps her grounded, unswayed by the
What a phenomenal start to the evening. A huge round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the incredibly talented Manasi Scott. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to HSBC Presents CNBC-TV18 Future Female Forward, the Women's Collective, Season 3, co-presented by Cognizant. For 2 seasons, Future Female Forward has been building momentum, leading the change. Through initiatives like College Connect and Leadership Circles, we've built a powerful network of change makers, tackled systemic challenges, and celebrated the remarkable success stories of women pushing boundaries. We've driven meaningful conversations on amplifying women's representation in leadership, entrepreneurship, and decision-making roles, constantly seeking to open new doors to progress. Now, this year, our theme is Path to Peak. It's not just about ambition. It is about the strategic, structured, and unstoppable ascent of women in leadership and beyond. The mission is clear: close the gap, break the barriers, redefine leadership. As Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, women belong in all places where decisions are being made. Today, we take one step closer to making that a reality. We don't just discuss the change, we make it happen. Before we begin, a heartfelt thank you to our incredible partners, our presenting partner, HSBC India, co-presenting partner, Cognizant, knowledge partner, the Udayti Foundation, industry partner, FICCI, and associate partner, Reliance Industries Limited, for their unwavering support in making this initiative stronger with each passing year. Now, before we start the Season 3, let's have a look at our journey so far. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to officially set the stage for this evening, please join me in welcoming a woman who serves as an inspiration herself, Shireen Bhan, Managing Editor of CNBC-TV18.
Wow. It always gives me goosebumps every time I see a room full of women, which is not a room that I very often walk into. So it's wonderful to see you all here, men included, because we don't want to just be talking to the women, we want to be talking to the men as well. Ladies and gentlemen, creating an equal opportunity world is not a challenge of this decade. It's not even of this century. It's a battle that women and men have waged over the ages in the hope of creating a more equal, a more fair and just society. In fact, today marks the death anniversary of India's first female educator and a champion of women's rights, Savitribai Phule. She would have been 195 this year. So can we take a moment to applaud what women like her have accomplished to make it possible for you and me to stand here today? We stand on the shoulders of these giants, and it would really be a travesty if we dropped the ball at a very crucial point in our history to push for real change and lasting impact. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, good evening and welcome to the 3rd edition of the Future Female Forward, the Women's Collective. I cannot even believe it's been 3 years since we started this campaign. In fact, we've just marked International Women's Day, and while we acknowledge the celebrations, we must also confront the stark reality behind this year's urgent theme: invest in women, accelerate progress. It's not a smart slogan alone. It is a call to action, and it's based on evidence and data. The World Bank's Gender Strategy Report for 2024 to 2030 calls out the negative consequences of disempowering women and why countries need a holistic approach of including public, private and the civil society to drive change. The IMF estimates that emerging and developing economies could boost GDP by about 8% over the next few years by raising the rate of female labor force participation by 5.9 percentage points. That's the average amount by which the top 5% of countries reduced the participation gap in the 2014 to 2019 period. And it is precisely this need for urgent action, for investment, for unlocking true possibility that brings us together here tonight to explore how India can truly inhabit the expansive realm of potential, especially for its women and therefore for its economic future. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, can a bird truly fly soaring to its full height with just one wing? Can India achieve its $30 trillion ambition by 2047 if it unleashes only half of its talent? The answer unequivocally is no. With a shared vision of an India where every woman is given an opportunity to thrive, that is why Future Female Forward Season 3 shifts the gears decisively. We've spent 2 seasons dissecting the why, and why we know intimately now. And now Season 3 marks a deliberate gear change. The urgent question is how? How do we accelerate change? How do we move from diagnosis to scalable, impactful solutions? And this season is really about drilling down to the practical, to the actionable, and the measurable. Tonight, we gather here not to ask for permission. We're here to chart out an action plan to dismantle barriers. Because, as Simone de Beauvoir profoundly observed, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. Society constructs barriers, imposes biases, and limits potential. And Future Female Forward Season 3 is about breaking the silos, engaging with stakeholders to drive tangible next steps in policies and practice to make change possible. It's about ensuring that every woman has the opportunity to become who she is meant to be, unhindered by societal constraints. We will showcase the very best in industry. We will dissect policy interventions and hold up a mirror to leadership asking, in fact demanding, how we're closing the gap. What are the benchmarks? Where's the accountability? And let's be clear, echoing the intent behind the EU's Transparency Directive, sunlight is in fact the best disinfectant. Transparency in pay, in opportunity, in leadership pathways. This isn't the tyranny of diversity and inclusion, but the bedrock of equity. This rigorous examination, this demand for transparency and accountability is not for the faint of heart. It takes courage to make it happen in reality. As Schiller so powerfully declared, daring and again daring and always daring. Season 3 is about daring to challenge the status quo, daring to act, and daring to hold ourselves accountable for delivering real measurable change. Finally and importantly, this isn't a solitary endeavor, ladies and gentlemen. We need all hands on deck to collectively push ahead. Once again, I'd like to thank all of our partners, HSBC, Hitendra Dave. We couldn't have been here without you. It's been an unwavering, steadfast partnership that we've enjoyed over the last 3 years. Vicky, Cognizant, and of course the Udayati Foundation coming on board as our knowledge partner, because it goes back to what I just said. We are here to tell you how, if you choose to make the how happen. Let me end with the immortal words of B.R. Ambedkar. I measure the progress of a community by the degree of progress which women have achieved. So let us uphold the spirit of our Constitution. Let us not fall short on the promises that we make to India's daughters. Let us, ladies and gentlemen, be truly future female forward. Thank you very, very much, and I hope you have a fabulous evening today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen, for that powerful and inspiring address. I request you to kindly stay back on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is more than just a gathering, it's a declaration. For years, we've spoken about bridging the gender gap, we've debated, we've discussed, but now it's time for action. Tonight, we take a decisive step forward as we unveil the Future Female Forward, Close the Gender Gap Charter, a blueprint for real measurable change. The Charter sets clear, actionable goals for increasing female representation at all levels of leadership. And to lead this momentous unveiling, it is only fitting that we invite someone who represents a global institution that has actively championed inclusivity and leadership diversity. Please join me in welcoming Hitendra Dave, CEO of HSBC India, to the stage. and let's unveil the charter. Ladies and gentlemen, keep the applause going as we unveil the charter.
I am fearless, I'm driven, I'm a change maker. They think they can stop me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Future Female Forward Close the Gender Gap Charter. And joining them for this landmark moment, we are honored to have some of the most influential voices driving change across industries. It's my privilege to invite Rajesh Warrior, EVP Global Head of Operations and Chairman and Managing Director, Cognizant India, Prabha Narasimhan, MD and CEO, Colgate Palmolive India. We also have Radha Dheer, CEO and Country Head, India, JLL, Pooja Sharma Goel, Founder and CEO, the Udeti Foundation, Ashish Dhawan, Founder and CEO, the Convergence Foundation, Zia Modi, Founder and Managing Partner at AZB and Partners, Ajayita Shah, Founder and CEO, Frontier Markets Consulting. We also have Pratima Reddy, Country Speaker, Merck India and MD, Merck Specialities. Chandrika Bahadur, CEO, Antara Foundation. Shraddha Shashidhar, Miss Diva Universe 2017. Neha Kirpal, Co-Founder, Amaha Health. Rekha Koita, Co-Founder, Koita Foundation. We've got Malvika Mudgal, Social Entrepreneur, Grassroots Worker, Jagan Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause. Requesting all of you to kindly sign the charter and mark this memorable day with your presence.
I'm a change maker. They think they can stop me, but can you stop the river? Every time you shut a door, I will find me a window. I'm the fire you can't douse. I'm the girl in the mirror. Every time you shut a door, I will find me a window. I'm the fire you can't douse. I'm the girl in the mirror.
Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause as they all sign the charter. And we request all of you to sign it as well. Once you leave, you can all sign it out. It's just right outside this ballroom. Request you all to kindly put the charter up front for a quick photo op. A heartfelt thank you to each of our distinguished leaders for your presence and unwavering support. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, do not forget to share your favorite moments with us using the hashtag FutureFemaleForward and tag us on your social handles like X, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn as well. It's now time to unveil the report which serves as a benchmark for progress. It remains the backbone of our Close the Gender Gap Charter, making it possible to measure the impact. The Gender Parity Report is more than just numbers. It's a reflection of where we stand, the barriers that still exist, and the areas where we need to push harder. Let's take a look at the key findings.
Future Female Forward started with a vision to amplify women's voices and transform leadership norms. Over the years, it has evolved from sparking conversations to creating measurable impact. We've mainstreamed the dialogue on gender parity, shared bold ideas, and delivered actionable strategies that drive real change. Now, entering the third year, we move from vision to action. Partnering with Udeti Foundation as our research backbone, we continue to lead with purpose, aligning with the ambitious vision of a high-income India by 2047.
If India were to increase its female labor force participation to where it is now, to the average for middle-income country, that will add 1% growth, 1 percentage point to growth rate, that alone. Even at 50%, combined with other things that may happen in the economy, India can achieve the objective of becoming a high-income country by 2047.
This year, we measured gender equity across India, Inc. with the Close Gender Gap Index. Powered by Udayati Foundation's research, it provides data-driven insights to inspire leadership inclusion. The data is clear. 50% of graduates are women, yet only 18% hold leadership roles. This is not just a gap, it's a leadership crisis. The CGG index reveals where the barriers are and how to break them. The Udayati Foundation team analyzed data from 2,000 plus NSE listed companies using BRSR framework for comprehensive reporting. The findings expose critical gaps in leadership pipelines, mid-career retention, and workplace culture. Gaps persist across key sectors, with some industries leading and others falling behind. High exit rates point to growth stagnation and biased appraisals. Gender diverse leadership drives growth. Companies with inclusive leadership report 21% higher profitability and better innovation. Udayati Foundation is committed to 30% women in leadership by 2030 with the Close the Gap 30 by 30 vision. The data is clear. The roadmap is ready. It's time to act.
Well, it's truly time to act, and requesting Pooja Sharma Goel to please join us on stage to decode the findings of the report and dig deeper into the insights which will help us in moving ahead with our mission. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Pooja Sharma Goel.
Good evening, everyone. It is a real honor to be here and to be launching India's first gender parity index among the who's who of corporate India. A big thank you to Shireen, the CNBC Network 18 team, and the team behind Future Female Forward for bringing us all together here and shining the light on this very important issue. Before we talk about the index, I want to bring your attention to one number, 196 million. That is the number of employable women that are currently out of India's workforce. If you consider the gross enrollment ratio in education, more women are graduating than men. Today, over 51% of undergraduate enrollment in science courses are women. But when it comes to participation of women in formal jobs, that number comes down to 18% and unfortunately has stayed stagnant at 18% over the last 5 years. This is a big opportunity we are sitting on. The government of India and state governments absolutely realize it. And therefore, India has one of the biggest gender budgets in the world. It was 6.8% last year and 8.9% this year. There are significant allocations for working women's hostels, childcare centers, women entrepreneurship schemes, you name it. At this juncture, it is critical that the private sector, government bodies, and civil society organizations like us come together to take advantage of this talent pool and this momentum and this unique position that our country holds on the international stage with all the geopolitical shifts that are currently on today. Close the Gender Gap, Gender Parity Index is a big step in that direction. Udayati started work on Close the Gender Gap program 30 by 30 about a year and a half ago. And the idea was to start with data, capture data from over 2,000 NSE listed companies through their annual reports and BRSR reports. We looked at workforce participation, pay parity, etc. And then in collaboration with Wipro, we created dashboards to make all of this information available to decision makers in corporate India. The platform is called Close the Gender Gap Data Hub, which is available on the Udayti website. Many of the organizations that we are closely working with are in the room. Metropolis Health in Health, Quest Corp and Team Lease in Flexi Staffing, Dr. Reddy's and Biocon Biologics in Pharma and Life Sciences, Mahindra and Mahindra in auto manufacturing, Wipro and HCL Technologies in IT. They are committed to bringing this making this happen, and that partnership is extremely important for us to move forward. Now, through the Gender Parity Index, firstly, we want to systemically highlight organizations that are leading in the gender diversity and inclusion and share their story of what they have done so far and how they have accomplished it. And really, it is not about the exact number, because when we start looking at numbers, healthcare is at 44%, whereas power and energy is at 2% and 3% respectively when it comes to women's workforce participation. So it is about the trajectory. It is about the systemic processes that organizations are building for sustained progress. The Gender Parity Index includes key data from BRSR report, which is gender disaggregated workforce data, pay parity, provision of benefits, for example, parental leave, daycare facilities, turnover and retention rates, and POSH data. Secondly, we would like to use this platform to encourage other companies to follow suit and enhance gender parity practices and improve, like Shireen said, transparency in gender data reporting. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. The CGG index assigns weightage across 3 thematic areas: women's representation, retention, and leadership. And all of those details are available on the Udayti website. The big idea is to have more corporate leaders and organizations commit to improving gender representation in their organizations and sectors, and then we work together to dismantle some of the barriers on the demand side, like hiring, retention, advancement, and return to work. Frankly, some of those are low-hanging fruits. When we are working with companies in logistics, there are companies that are committed to having more women, but when they are putting up posters for finding delivery folks, they'll say delivery boys want it. So women will not even apply. Those are low-hanging fruits. We can fix those. Some of them will be complex challenges and require sustained, dedicated effort to dismantle. Safety, security, safe and affordable housing for women when they move to other cities. I want to promise Udayti's unequivocal support in working with different stakeholders to make that happen. And of course, pro bono, because we are a not-for-profit organization. And I request your support by joining the Close the Gender Gap CEO Consortium in actively shaping not only this gender parity index, but also our efforts towards getting to 30% women's workforce representation in corporate India from the paltry 18% where it has been stuck at over the last 5 years. Thank you so much.
A big thank you to Pooja Sharma Goel and the Udayti Foundation for making data-driven impact a reality at Future Female Forward. Now we turn to the core of our mission, creating equal opportunity workplaces. Research from McKinsey and World Economic Forum proves that diverse leadership teams drive higher profitability and innovation. Yet challenges remain in the form of persistent gender pay gaps and underrepresentation of women in leadership. So what does this mean for India's business landscape? How are top leaders addressing these challenges while unlocking the true potential of diverse workplaces? To lead this important conversation, I request Shireen to kindly join us back on stage and to bring us exclusive insights from the front lines of corporate leadership. It is my absolute privilege to welcome our distinguished speakers, Hitendra Dave, CEO HSBC India, Rajesh Warrier, EVP Global Head of Operations and Chairman and Managing Director, Cognizant India, Vartika Shukla, Chairman Engineers India. We've also got Prabha Narasimhan, MD and CEO Colgate-Palmolive India, Rajesh Jejurikar, Executive Director and CEO at Mahindra Group. We've also got Ameera Shah, Promoter and Executive Chairperson, Metropolis Healthcare, and Ashish Dhawan, Founder and CEO, the Convergence Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for our panelists. Shireen, with that, it's over to you.
This makes me so happy, ladies and gentlemen. I've been doing this for 25 years now, and invariably, when I'm at one of these events, I'm usually the only woman on stage with a long line of men in suits, and this is what we're hoping to do, achieve gender parity, and we've done that starting here on our panel this evening. So many thanks to my panelists for joining us here this evening. Hitendra Dave, this started as a conversation that both of us had on a flight, and today, 3 years on, it has become a movement. As you look at where we are today, and Pooja was just giving us the data, while we have mainstreamed the conversation and progress has been made in some areas, there's a long road to cover. It's a long distance to go, Hitendra. From the experience that you've had so far with the movement as well as with HSBC, what's next?
Well, again, I guess what's next is data, right? I mean, Pooja just showed us the data. You can argue with everything except facts. Right? So once the facts start to show that this conversation is beginning to have impact, now, we should be proportional in our expectations. I don't expect 10,000 companies in India to look at this program and say, hey, we need to change our diversity or hiring or inclusion policies. But it is very difficult today to be running a reasonable sized business and not be having this conversation. I think I can't believe any board or executive committee or top management teams don't talk about this, right? I think how to go about it, there is a debate. Should we have hard numbers? Like our board, right? I mean, I don't know if everybody is aware here, but we are a fairly large organization globally, right? I mean, 50% of our board is women. And that wasn't done as a conscious DEI thing. It just so happened that 50% of the directors that the bank was looking for were very, very brilliant women, right? So similarly, at some of our senior most executives, I think you are aware, our CFO is possibly not just a woman, possibly the senior most Indian woman in the banking industry, right? She's from India. Like she's not grown up abroad. She studied here and went there, etc. So we have many stories to tell. But to answer your question, I think we need, and I know you're going to do this over the course of this session in this year, we need the real leaders, women leaders in particular. I think their insights, their stories, what it took them, was it such a significant sacrifice? How did they manage it? You need young girls and women in schools and colleges to get inspired, right? I mean, political leaders, business leaders, executive leaders. So that would be next, where it's, where it moves from being an agenda number 6 to just being a natural. It's like product innovation, or it's like customer centricity, right? When boards and executive managements get to the point where they talk about diversity and inclusion in the same vein as customer or things like that, I think that would be a good start.
Well, speaking of inspiration, I promise you we have not just on this panel an inspiration set of speakers, but we've got plenty more coming up right through the course of this evening. So there's going to be lots of food for thought and lots of great role models that we will showcase here this evening. But Vartika Shukla, let me come to you. We're talking about the private sector's involvement. Let's talk about the public sector's involvement as well. I don't know how many of you know this. Vartika Shukla is a graduate from IIT Kanpur and is today one of the few women leading a public sector organization. She leads Engineers India Limited. So Vartika, I want to understand from you, through your own journey and the arc that you've been able to make, what do you believe has changed, but what do you believe needs to change from here on?
Thank you, Shireen. It's a delight to be part of this very prestigious gathering wherein we have thoughts from all sectors of the industry and both the genders together, working towards a common goal. One thing that differentiates public sectors, to put in point, is, and we talked about pay parity to begin the conversation about how to bring equality in the workspaces for both men and women. In the public sector space, one thing is very clear. Everybody gets the same pay and gets the same raise. So that settles one part of the, issue, which is...
And it's an important issue.
It's a very important issue. Yes. And I have seen that. In fact, I was reading Sheryl Sandberg, and it was... it's a big issue in terms of even negotiations which women have to do in spaces to actually achieve and get what they truly deserve. Going back to the point as to where we are, what needs to be done, I think the one thing is, and if I specifically look at the engineering space, or I look at, there are many disciplines where the parity is already achieved. You look at medical sciences, you look at the legal space, you look at the financial space, IT space. There are good spaces where we have equal representation at all levels, as Mr. Dave also mentioned. But looking at particularly in the engineering space, I think it needs to attract a lot more talent. We need to plug leaky pipelines as we go along the career journey of women. Public sectors are putting in a lot of enablers in terms of policy. We heard the allocation of the percentage of our budget into women development through a lot of programs from various ministries. But to enable that, to put it into force, to actually needs commitment at leadership level, which is there. I'll give you some examples. There are companies in the public sector space who have all manned process plants, who have, like we have now, women in construction, which is not easy as a space to be in. So looking at all these aspects, looking at conscious policy creation, looking at continuous monitoring, making sure that step by step we grow up in the percentage and make sure that we give spaces in leadership position to women. I think that would, in a holistic way, kind of move the needle towards steering their careers to higher decision-making processes.
So this is the good news, that at least as far as pay parity is concerned, the public sector has been able to achieve that. So we're hoping that the private sector takes notes from that. But Ashish, to the point that was being made both by Pooja as well as Vartika, India perhaps has some of the most progressive policies when we talk about women in the workforce, whether it's maternity leave, maternity benefits, or it is gender budgeting, as was just discussed. So capital is relatively less of a constraint today. Why do you believe then that we're still at that 18% number as opposed to the aspirational 30% number that we're hoping to get to by 2030?
No, thanks, Shireen. I think a lot of it has to do with the mindset of our leadership. I mean, the data is very clear that 18% of the 12 million employees in the top 2,000 companies are women. So it's only 2 million women. I think we have to make a pledge that I think the top 2,000 will probably have 18 million employees by 2030. And if we can get to 30%, that's 5.5 million women. That'll be a dramatic change. It's almost 3x in terms of number of women. And these are some of the best jobs. These are the largest companies in India. I think that even though companies pay lip service to this, I don't think they work hard enough on this issue. Because in every sector, we see outliers, and we don't see companies making the effort to achieve what's already been achieved by outliers in India. So if you take, say, the banking sector, 26% of the banking sector, the workforce are women. But there are 2 banks in India already that have crossed 40%. And there are others that are stuck at 10%. Our neighboring Sri Lanka is at 45%. Vietnam's at 68%. I think we can easily get to 40%. As a sector, if the leadership is committed to it and really wants to make it happen. You know, there are often excuses about women working in branches or feet on street.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. But there are banks that have actually shown that it's possible to make it happen. Similarly, if you look at the pharmaceutical sector, it's only 11% women. But there are pharma companies at 25% and there are others at 2%. So I think what Pooja and team have done is really looked at those outliers to dissect what they've been doing, to make those role models, and companies can actually speak to their peers. You know, these champions, in a sense, are more than happy to share what they've done. And I think if what we need is leadership to sign on for concrete targets in 2030. So I, company X, am at 25%. I commit to get to 35 or 40%, share it with the board, and have an action plan you disclose publicly. I think that's what will get us there eventually. And you, Shireen, have to help us to get those CEOs to sign on the dotted line.
So here's the backstory. This is something that we discussed and debated. Should we, as part of the charter, put down a number where we get people to commit to that particular number? And finally, we pulled back because we said that, look, these are things that will perhaps require board approval. These are things that people will have to take to different stakeholders within the organization. So we didn't want a situation where we ambush people, because this is really not about that. This is about getting people to voluntarily sign up and come on board. But this was a discussion that we had between the CNBC and the Udayati team on whether we should put a number down as part of the charter. And we're hoping to get there. We're hoping that this conversation will lead us there. But Prabha Narasimhan, let me come to you now. And you know, my fear today, what globally, and I did address that in the remarks that I made early on, there's this talk about the tyranny of diversity and inclusion. Do you worry that we're likely to see a pullback, a retreat from some of these issues that require urgent intervention and action?
So thanks, Shireen. I think firstly, Shireen, the minute you combine diversity and inclusion together, I think the likelihood of pullback is very, very low. Because what that says is that we're going to get in people who are different, gender being one of the ways you can get in people who are different, and make sure that they feel included in an organization enough to be able to stay and progress. So I'm really glad that you combined the two words together, because the concern really is, and if I may, to your point, the concern on putting targets is that it signals, whether you mean it to signal or not, that you are willing to compromise on meritocracy. And I don't think there is any woman in this room or anywhere else who wants a suggestion that there is a willingness to compromise on meritocracy. I think the answer may be a little bit to the question is, as you get them in for interviews, for discussions, that the slate is balanced, and then let the best person win to get the job. And if I may, sorry, to Mr. Dave's point on, if I may say to the women in this room and beyond, there are many jobs that we've traditionally thought are not a great idea for women. And coming from an FMCG background, sales is one of them. Attracting women into sales actually is very, very difficult, because all said and done, it is a difficult job. But honestly, it is fantastic learning. And if you put yourself out there, the rewards that it gives you are tremendous. So if I could just urge the women in this room to take these challenges and take some of these leaps, it would really help as well.
You know, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that does deserve a big round of applause, because, you know, very, very often, because of the biases and because of the societal construct and patriarchy, let's call it what it is, women often abdicate spaces for fear or because it's not in their comfort zone. And I think it is time that we challenge some of those norms. It's time that we challenge some of those roles. And today, we will be honoring many women who have done exactly that, who've braved the odds and decided to do what they felt was the right thing for them to do. So you will see them in just a moment from now. But Rajesh Jejurikar, you know, this is something that Mahindra & Mahindra has decided to prioritize. I know this right at the leadership level, from Anish to you. You are championing the idea of making the workforce much more diverse and inclusive. Explain to me what you've done that's working, and what are you setting targets for yourself, for instance? What are you going about addressing by way of culture to ensure that this changes?
Yeah. Thanks, Shireen, and great to be on this panel. And let me just build from where Prabha left off, and which was the last part of your question. And that's around targets. And, you know, that's something we've debated at every level, including at our board, and taken a very conscious call that we will not have targets. And we actually consulted with many women leaders in the organization, and every one of them felt that that's the worst thing we can do. Because no woman, like you said, wants to feel that they made it because there was a target or a quota. So, every woman wants to get there on merit. It's the role of the organization to create enablers and facilitate the process. And that's, I think, is the key leadership role. So, while we have targets on so many other parameters, I think this is one area we've got to realize that there is a sensitivity and a softness and an emotion which needs to be addressed, and a commitment which is to come truly from within. And also a mindset, especially in the industry some of us operate in, that it's not something that can happen instantly and overnight. And so I'll just take a couple of minutes talking about things which are important, things which need focus. So, and I'm going to talk starting from the workforce, because, when we talk about overall numbers as a nation by way of contribution of women to the workforce, getting women in manufacturing, which is really the core of our business, really is a very high priority, and that's where we are putting most of our focus on. So firstly, manufacturing lines which we are creating, concepts like paint shop will have only women. Some of the assembly lines, we've identified some cells which will have 40-50% women. The critical thing here, firstly, is reaching out to villages around the plant and creating a perception of it being a safe workplace, because that is very important in the society in which they live. So the ability to transport them in and back. When women go back late at night, we have a system by which, the HR gets message that they've got dropped home safely. So, there are multiple things, cameras around the plant. So really, creating a very positive word of mouth that it's safe for women to be here. So that we think is a key enabler. The other one is working closely with the training institutes like ITI. And many others to create, we have a program called Kabil, and we were associated with 2,000 institutions, which is skill building. So firstly, how do you create the desire, then the education, and then of course the retention. So that's at the entry level. As we go up the rest of the leadership hierarchy, and I think the key challenge has been women dropping out of workplace. Yeah. And which is where you spoke about the maternity policy. So we've introduced a maternity policy a year back, which gives a lot of flexibility to women, supports them with allowances during that period of time. But really what they need is the time flexibility. And we give almost a window of 3 years with complete flexibility on timing. And the other program we've launched is something we call SOAR, which is, we just started, and that's not S-O-R-E, it's S-O-A-R, which is to attract women back who've taken a gap in their work careers, and then run a mentorship and training program to help them get back. So we're starting with 25 women we've just started who have had 5 years experience and taken a break of 18 months to 3 years and then want to come back. So I think we've got to address this at multiple levels, starting from the entry level. We often try to solve for this in industries at the leadership level, and I think that's not the right place to start. The leadership is to focus on how to make it happen.
Absolutely, and we do need to have a bottoms-up approach. I completely agree with you there, and then work your way to the top. But you're talking about safety, and I remember one of our panelists here on Future Female Forward had spoken about when they were setting up their manufacturing facility, and it was in the hinterlands in I think Rajasthan somewhere, and they decided to do something which was innovative. They decided to call the mothers-in-law into the workspace to come and have a look at where their daughters-in-law were going to go to work. And once you got the buy-in from mothers-in-law, you actually saw the rate of women joining the workforce go up significantly. So, you've really got to customize solutions. You've got to think out of the box, and you've got to think on your feet. Speaking about maternity and return to work, Amira Shah, let me come to you, because Amira's got 3 children. children, twins, and her 5-year-old just celebrated a birthday yesterday. So I want to understand from you, Amira, because this is a big challenge, especially when we talk about women opting out of the workforce. As someone who's gone through this yourself, as a leader, how do you shape policy? How do you shape decisions that will provide a facilitating, enabling environment to ensure that women don't find it easier to opt out?
You know, frankly, Shireen, it's very easy to opt out because I think once you have children, there's a nice cocoon at home in which you feel very comfortable and happy and safe, and you don't feel the need to go out at all. And honestly, salute to the women who actually choose to say, you know what, I'm going to give it my all at work, I'm going to give it all my home, and I can actually do it all. And it's amazing because it's such a hard thing to do and to balance. It's really incredible. But I think if we truly want to see transformational change in India, I think we don't need to look that far. We need to also borrow from other countries. And just to bring up the elephant in the room, right? First, the question is, why should we close the gap? That's the first question. Honestly, when I've been on the board of so many companies, when I bring this point up, sometimes people just say, but why? It's neither helping my business, there's no business case, it's not helping my P&L, it's not doing this, so why should I do it? And in the US, you talked about the tyranny of diversity. I mean, in the US, you see with the new president coming in, a lot of that is going backwards, right? So it just tells you that corporates react to either carrot or stick. The idea of doing the right thing is not necessarily so common and so prevalent. So there was a sort of a stick at that point in the US. People were pushing for D&I. Now it's not there, so everyone's sort of going backwards. So in India, we got to decide, hey, are we going to use carrot or stick? Because something is needed. Because people alone just to do the right thing, here we may be preaching to the choir of the converted, but that may not be true for the rest of the country, even the top 2,000 businesses in the country. So in my mind, we really need to talk about transformational policy. If you look at Vietnam, for example, they've created some amazing incentive programs for corporates who are hiring more women, right? They've created different tax structures. Besides creating, like you talked about, workplace safety, they've created, manufacturing companies have created all-night work women shifts. So only women work at night in that shift. So whether the mother-in-law is comfortable or not, she knows that, hey, there's no other man there, my daughter or my daughter-in-law is safe. So I think there are some very fundamental things other countries have done. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can borrow those ideas and make it true for India. But I think the most important thing is, you have men in power today. Getting those men in power to identify with a problem which they don't feel today because they have not gone through it is difficult. It's difficult for them, it's difficult for the women. I think we need a carrot or stick. We need a push from government, or we need a pull, an incentive scheme to drive it till it becomes a habit. Nobody questions, that's at some point men's arms used to be cut off when they made a mistake. Taj Mahal and guillotine and all of that. And in today's corporate world, that would be just ridiculous. But that was normal at the time. I mean, today the fact that we're talking about women getting paid differently just seems like a ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 years later, I'm assuming this is not going to be common practice.
Well, we certainly hope it won't be common practice. That's really the idea. But you're right in pointing out that there needs to perhaps be a carrot and a stick approach. And look, the stick has worked to some degree when we decided to mandate company boards to actually bring women independent directors on board. You actually saw the data tell you that there was a change. So sometimes, as Amira was pointing out, you do need the stick to be wielded to make change happen. But Rajesh Warrior, I want to understand from you, we're also talking about living in an age of AI and hyper technology, and is that, to your mind, going to leave the women more behind, or is that in fact going to provide a way out and a way forward?
Shireen, first of all, congratulations on your season 3. We in Cognizant are proud sponsors of what you're doing here. I think being a flag bearer on Future Female Forward is just fantastic. Thank you for having me on the show. Your question about AI, let's take it in 2 buckets, right? AI is definitely going to disrupt every industry that we know in different degrees. We have done a study along with Oxford Economics a while back, which looked at about 1,000 jobs comprising of 18,000 tasks, and it tells us that 90% of the jobs will get disrupted, of course, in varying degrees. Now, you look at that lens and you look at the problem statement that you're talking about. There are 2 buckets I would like to put this problem into. One is existing workforce. For the existing workforce, there's a great opportunity for every organization to make sure that the existing workforce is completely trained on AI, irrespective of gender. I have very little worries there because everybody in the workforce will get trained based on the job that they're doing. You have upcoming workforce, which is coming in from universities and colleges, which is the other bucket which I have. And I think it's imperative that industry actually does a partnership with academia to make sure that the colleges and universities have the access to the latest and the greatest in terms of curriculum, in terms of ability to impart education, so that all the men and women coming out of colleges have an equal opportunity to learn the latest and the greatest technologies. Today it is AI. 6 years back, if we were having this conversation, Shireen, we would have been talking about digital technologies. Tomorrow it will be something else. But I think there is an opportunity for us to bridge any divide that exists with the current way of technologies. But there is a lot of onus on the industry to make sure that we turn around and partner with universities. And Cognizant is, as an example, we are doing that. We are partnering with some 19 different colleges to be able to achieve that. So there's a great opportunity for us to bring parity.
There is an opportunity there, and we need those linkages and those partnerships to work. But Ashish, I want to come back to Amira's point about the why. And I think we still continue to deal with the why in many, many ways across different sectors. And it doesn't matter what the World Bank says, it doesn't matter what the IMF says in terms of the benefits that the economy will accrue on account of unlocking women as consumers, women as workers. As you speak with CEOs today, as you talk to people in the boardroom today, is the why still an issue that is that's begging an answer?
I think it is, Shireen, and that's why just a mandate may not be sufficient. I think we do need to, there is plenty of research out there that clearly shows that having a higher percentage of women in the workforce, in leadership positions, lead to better outcomes. But I think companies have to experience it themselves. And in India's case, they have to break a lot of barriers. I'll tell you, if you look at the factory, and out in the field, those are the two areas where across industries, why is FMCG stuck at 11%? Why is pharma at 11%? Why is banking at 26%? It's because we have in India this myth that it's not safe for women to be out there. We've decided, in a paternalistic manner, that's the case. There are companies that have broken the barriers, where in a logistics warehouse, you'll see women doing jobs that you could never imagine earlier that they would do on the shop floor. But that story is not told enough. And I think that's what's holding us back, is the fact that it's going to lead to a better, more productive work environment. And it's definitely possible. Our labor laws, by the way, are still archaic. There are, if you look at the list of...
But that's for men as well. Overall.
No. If you look, there are in most states, that women are prevented from working in quote-unquote hazardous industries. And if I showed you that list, you'd be appalled.
Yes.
And in some states, they're prevented from working at night.
Yeah.
Now, that's changing, but changing too slowly.
Changing too slowly, you're absolutely right. Bhartika Shukla, let me ask you, we're talking about next steps. In your experience leading engineers India today, how do you draw more women into manufacturing, into engineering, into construction? How do you retain them? How do you ensure that there is, in fact, a pipeline of leaders who also happen to be women?
So before I get on to that, I'll just add to what Ashish mentioned. I think we need to believe as leaders, we need to believe as boards that we have the power and ability to change things, change laws if we are convinced. And I'll supplement this by an example. One of our sister PSUs who runs a refinery in Panipat actually went out there and changed the law for night shift working in the state. And today, one of their plants is completely manned by women. And they could do that because they were convinced that we need to show that as an example of not just breaking the barrier, but also having other women believe that it is possible for them to work in a safe environment, to actually be as competent, as able as men. And that's important. I believe that this reinforces the fact that women in general are, see that as an example to aspire, to have ambition, to have examples which are right in front of them, which actually provides them that work environment. So it's very important for us who sit in positions to make that change, to actually use these opportunities to create platform. And I'm telling you, with my experience, it is very much possible. Let me now come to the construction sites. We are a project management company. We run about 55 sites all over the world where we implement projects in the oil and gas sector, in infrastructure sector, and NFM. There are several sectors that we work in. In our technical domain, we have 15% women, which is not easy for any organization, any engineering company to actually nurture and have. We have leadership positions which are actually steered by women. And they look at projects not only in India, but also overseas. Now, that comes from a very, a fact that the environment is an enabler. Culturally, we've been having equal opportunities for everybody, equal space. Of course, there are struggles. Nothing comes without struggles. To say that everything is hunky-dory is not true. But where there's a will, there is a way. That is also true. So we run programs wherein we inspire women to go to construction site. We call it Tejaswini, where we nurture talent who actually want to come out and take up these steps. So we put them together. We put them separately also. And a lot of our technical staff, the 15% that I mentioned, actually go to sites. Difficult conditions, harsh conditions. So I have been through that crucible as well. And I tell you, it's a joy for us to see them shine, and it also brings value to our organization.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think that is important to highlight. We've talked about SOAR, and we're now talking about Tejaswini, and we need many, many more examples, ladies and gentlemen. So a round of applause for the work that's being done to encourage women to make their way into spaces that previously didn't exist. But Prabha, I want to understand from you your own journey of having worked across different organizations to now leading an organization in the FMCG sector. You talked about the challenges of drawing women into sales, but not just drawing women into the workforce in different functions, but keeping them there. Give me the 2 or 3 practical things that have worked and the things that you believe we need to focus on.
So I think the couple of things that I worked hard, really the obvious things. One, which is to guarantee that you will have a job, and a job of equal stature or better than the one that you left when you go on maternity leave or you go on break to have a child. The second is to aid with childcare. Whether it's a creche or it's a support for a creche, those are the really obvious ones. But I think the one thing that perhaps we need to think about as we do this is to make parenting an equal opportunity thing. Whenever we talk about parenting, we tend to talk about what the woman will do and how much leave she can take and what she can do. And I know there are many men out there who would really dearly love an opportunity as much to be fathers to their children, and yet maybe either the sanction is not there or the policies are not there. And so we've tried to make a move. We've started 3 months of paternity leave up from the 2 weeks, encouraging men actually to take time off when they have children, because after a while you can certainly do pretty much everything that the mom could do, and maybe that will help as well. But I do think that's an area where we could make even more progress than we've made so far.
Oh, absolutely. I think sharing the load is crucial. It's critical, and we do need to take that message forward. Rajesh, the 2 or 3 things that have worked with what you've been able to do on the ground level, especially to draw women into manufacturing on the assembly line and keep them there.
Yeah, I spoke about some of these, Shireen. I think one is getting the union leaders to believe that it's important. Because then they take ownership, and we've seen that in in all our manufacturing facilities where we're building that. Having that as a leadership conversation is a huge facilitator, because then they believe that is an important priority. The second, and the challenge I think we still have to grapple with, is keeping women in workplace. Especially in manufacturing, because the typical tendency is, they would feel they are let's say, societally permitted to work till they get married, but that paradigm could change once they're married, especially in the blue collar. So I think that needs work on attitude training. And we've actually, in our Nagpur plant where we make tractors, the women, the girls who work there actually, do skits and share stories, because that's a great way to build confidence. So, going back, and I spoke to my parents who spoke to someone else's father to say, this is a place you can work in. We find that really working. The storytelling around this and using skits on shop floors to tell stories of how they went back and created word of mouth. So that's, I think, something that's really working. Just on what's not working, I think making this happen in sales is something we've struggled a lot with. We have to keep in mind it's not just the feeling of security, there's just complete lack of infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge today. I see that changing a lot with highways and roadways coming up, where you have restrooms coming up along the way. So there's a very, very rapid change that's happening. But there is a real issue of infrastructure. There is a real issue of quality of hotels in many towns. The safety that those places offer. So I think there are real issues around deep field work. Organizations like Ashish said have found ways around it, and one of the solutions we have found wherever we're doing this is to hire locally and not transfer across states, because then there's a comfort of having grown up in that area, and there's they know how to navigate their way around that geography.
Yes, the infrastructure challenge is well known and continues to be a big constraint. I think all of us women in this room will speak for the fact that our bladders have many, many stories to tell. But that's a conversation for another day. But Amira, I want to ask you, next steps, the things that you believe we need to focus on, and really from your own experience, share with us what you would like to tell women here in this room, women who are watching, especially young girls who are looking at starting their careers, building their careers. From your own experience, what is it that you would share with them?
So I think, look, at Metropolis, being in healthcare, we're quite lucky because we already have a pretty good gender balance, right? Like we said, healthcare is pretty high up there. But at Metropolis, we are at about almost 47-48% women, which is amazing, right? So you literally, and we've managed to create an organization where women across don't feel a gender bias at all. And the way we've done that is not only obviously by having leaders who are representing that, but by making equal opportunity a value system. Often I find in organizations, if there's a guy who's a great performer on financials, all his other behaviors will get ignored, right? Whether it's sexual harassment or whether it's not equal opportunities, bias, gender bias, or anything else. We've been very clear, your performance is great, but your value system is equally important in the organization, and your value system includes the fact that you will deal with people equally, whether it's of gender, religion, caste, creed, whatever it is, right? And I think that's been a fundamental way to be able to create that no bias in the organization. So, but we still do struggle with enough women at the senior leadership level. So if I look at just the CXO group, unfortunately out of 12, I have only 2 women along with me, which is one of the agenda points which I'm going to give my own organization going forward to say this needs to move closer to a 40 to 50% ratio in the years to come. Just out there for all the women, the only point I want to make is, we've all been so conditioned by society to stay away from risk. Whether it's our fathers, whether it's our brothers, whether it's our husbands, constantly telling us, be safe, come home at this time, don't do this, don't do that. Our whole lives we've heard, avoid this risk. And then suddenly when the woman becomes older, we say, oh, now go out of the house and do field work and, become an entrepreneur and do this. And I mean, you're asking a person who you've conditioned to, have no risk to now suddenly become risk prone. And if you look at women entrepreneurship, it's all about living with uncertainty, or any entrepreneurship. So I think a lot of it has to go back to how we bring up our daughters and stop protecting them in these golden cages and keeping them away from every iota of risk, because that is not life. We have to teach them how to navigate it versus teaching them a way to stay away from it. And to me, I think once we can all learn to embrace risk, we can do anything.
most certainly can do anything. Rajesh, talk to me about Project Shakti. That is something that you're taking forward also to ensure that you create that pipeline of leaders as well as get women to take the risk that Amira was talking about.
Yeah, Shireen, I've worked in the industry for 30 years now. Every organization has well-intentioned DEI programs. In Cognizant, Shakti program has actually blown me away. It is such a well-thought-through program. What we are doing with Shakti is we are looking at the entire career path of a woman, even before they start a job, all the way through to leadership. What are the support structures that we need to provide her for her success? At the lowest level, when you're looking at the workforce coming out of colleges, so we have a program called Nurture Her. It is about focusing on women who are in colleges, looking to having aspirations to build a career. What is the guidance you can provide them in various ways? It's about how to deal with objections in the family when you get a job and you have to move away from your home and, everybody says, "Oh, are you sure you want to move?" What do you do in that situation? To actually helping them understand how to manage personal finance, to a bunch of other things. So Nurture Her is a very important program. Then when they step into the workforce, the first thing that happens is anybody who steps into a workforce for the first time really don't know how to navigate the organization. So we have a bunch of programs which actually focus on that. Then when they move to the managerial cadre, in the beginning levels, how to manage a team, how to negotiate, how to make presentation skills, how to build your own brand. So we have a very good construct around Shakti, and it's a program that we started a year back. We had, of course, a lot of D&I programs, but we have curated this into a group called Shakti, and we have a D&I team which does a phenomenal job of making sure that we're working through it and ensuring that it's actually being effective. So,
well, more Shakti to you,
Thank you.
and to the team. Hitendra Dave, next steps. We've done a lot of work here at Future Female Forward. What do you see as the ambition from here?
No, I think just I wanted to comment on one or two of the things that were spoken about. One is on pay, right? For example, we do disclose by gender. Okay, and India is one of the few countries that has been chosen for that project. So it is possible to, now obviously you have to decide how much to disclose because you can't disclose individual names, but and there is a checking done when we are deciding our compensation. Is there a trend somewhere? Is there a bias somewhere on this? Either side, by the way. Right. Either side, okay, right? So I think that's one. But I think to answer your question, I think this is a multi-decadal journey, right? I mean, let's be proportional in our, if 3 sessions could do it, then we would all be happily going home. So this is a multi-decadal journey. But I think at least for financial services, which I'm the only representative of here. I really like to think that at most banks, whoever gets selected because he or she is highly talented. Yeah. And if they get promoted because they're highly talented. And if they don't, then it's also, I think that phase, at least in financial services, I think of having serious unconscious biases, I think is increasingly more the rear view than the front view mirror or so. But I think, as more and more people like us take the conversations back, as this becomes, why gets addressed through, you take a list of companies headed by women or where there's a lot of women directors or there's a senior amount of, and you see their stock price performance and that data is out there, right?
Yes, it is.
Right. So that's why the why should be there, I'm sure. But I would like to say that I think, given what's happening in US and things like that, I think this is a subject which will require much more nuanced conversations going forward. You just can't be as black or white as we were, say, 2 years back or so.
Yeah, a nuanced conversation, but also a conversation that cannot retreat into the back rooms, a conversation that must continue to be mainstreamed. Bartika and Prabha, I'm going to give you the closing comments here. Bartika, from your own experience, what's been the biggest learning and what is it that you would like to share with us and with women and with men who are watching, with fathers, husbands, brothers who are watching?
This is quite complicated. You made it, Shri. But the one thing that I would say is to women at all times, stay focused. Put your targets in, keep the targets in sight always. Believe in yourself. The sky is the limit. There's no, there's nothing second to hard work, discipline, all that. But to continue on that journey in a focused manner and also looking ahead is very important. 5 years down the line, where you want to be, how you want to shape yourself, what kind of enablers, what kind of cross-functional talents you need to accrue to yourself, what kind of networking you need to do. There are so many lists of items, but you have to stay focused. And let me tell you, no one can do it alone. No gender can do it alone. And everybody wants talent on the table. Today, every corporate, private, public, anywhere, all over the world is in transition. Everybody wants to stay relevant all the time, to be up ahead on the curve. So every talent is required on the table, and in that, none of us have done it alone. The men have been part of the growth. I have had mentors who have been men. Without batting an eyelid, they would send me away single to remote locations all over the world, and never even look and ask whether you will be able to make it or not. So I've had that opportunity, and I give that opportunity to others. So it's a journey which is together. We can reach it together, and with the focus of managements all over to put this agenda as an important one. I think we are there, but we need to continue on this path of discussion, debate, getting little things in place as we go along to have that 50% women on boards of all companies.
Well, 50% women on boards of all companies, that is an ambition, that is certainly an aspiration that we hope to take forward. Prabha, I'll give you the closing comment here on the biggest lessons from your own journey that you'd like to leave us with.
So I think, no pressure at all, but I think the two things I'd like to leave with is one, for women in this room and outside to have self-belief, because when you have self-belief, there really isn't a lot that can stop you. And the second would be to ask for help from the men in your life. I wouldn't be sitting here. My daughter is writing ICSE. My husband is at home, and that's why I'm here. So definitely ask for help from the men in your life.
Ask for help, keep the conversation going, lots of confidence, lots of self-belief. Prabha, Rajesh, Hitendra Dave, Vartika Shukla, Rajesh Jujurikar, Amira Shah, and Ashish Dhawan, thank you so much for being here with us today to take this conversation forward. We look forward to hearing more from you with each of your experiences. And ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for all of them.
What an insightful discussion on making equal opportunity workplaces a reality. A heartfelt thank you to all our esteemed guests and Shireen for reminding us that gender equality is not just an initiative, it is shared responsibility. Request you to kindly remain on stage with us. Moving on, it is my absolute honor to introduce a visionary who has transformed Indian craftsmanship into a global symbol of luxury. Celebrating 25 remarkable years of his brand, he has built a legacy of uniqueness by turning an imaginative vision into a globally recognized name. From redefining Indian artistry on the world stage to choosing heritage and authenticity over traditional perfection, his journey reflects not only creative excellence but also an unwavering commitment to cultural preservation and empowerment. His artistic vision is deeply inspired by strong, elegant and self-reliant women, with every creation celebrating the beauty in imperfections and making bold statements. His work goes beyond fashion. It is a narrative of tradition meeting modernity, where each piece challenges conventions and honors individuality. As a pioneer who bridges the gap between art and impact, he continues to lead with purpose, passion, and an enduring influence on the world of luxury. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming the incredible Sabyasachi Mukherjee. Also, a quick note, like I mentioned, it's 25 years of Sabyasachi Mukherjee. It's also 25 years of Shireen Ban. So we truly have a remarkable duo on stage. Shireen, over to you.
Now, this is of course a wonderful coincidence. It's 25 years of Sabyasachi Mukherjee and it's 25 years of CNBC-TV18. So we couldn't have planned this better, Sabya. Thank you so much for joining us, and what an honor and a pleasure to have you join us here this evening.
Thank you. Likewise. This crowd makes me very nervous, but
this crowd makes you nervous, guys. Really? Should we give them a big cheer before we start? But yes, Sabya, this is where I want to start by talking to you. 25 years ago, when you decided that you were going to veer into the world of fashion, as a young man from Calcutta, I know that you were inspired by your grandmothers, both paternal as well as maternal, and you had a very strong backing of some strong women who've shaped your narrative, who've shaped your storytelling. But when you look back at your journey so far, is there a sense of disbelief sometimes? You know, do you have to pinch yourself to say, how did I get here?
Not really. You know, I was always sure of what I would do, but I wouldn't have done it without the women in my life. You know, as a man, I might have birthed Sabyasachi, but it's the women who raised Sabya. And I think whether my grandmothers, whether the women in Calcutta, and they're very strong, and I think the women in that city lead, I think they've always urged me to follow my dreams. And I think at a time when you have a dream and you have a conviction, when your conviction is shared by people around you, then you realize that it just makes the journey a little more easier.
Speaking of the journey, and you said you always knew or you always believed that you were going to make this what it is today. What was the ambition 25 years ago? I mean, what did you imagine Sabyasachi Mukherjee to be?
You know, when you grow up in Calcutta, I mean, culture becomes a default setting because, you know, whether you like it or not, it becomes a part of your life through osmosis. You know, a lot of people in my family are educationists. From my mother's side, people are doctors. You know, my mother's a painter. And, you know, I've grown up seeing world cinema, listening to music, reading great literature. You know, my father's elder brother used to take me to all the film festivals to watch movies. And, you know, I've always felt at a time, you know, when I was seeing Ray and Ghatak and Govind Nihalani, and I used to read books and, you know, read Tagore, I never felt India was a third world country. You know, I always felt India was a first world civilization. And I was like, why are we not doing our best to represent ourselves right? Because there is so much of misrepresentation of India. And I think within that, I saw an opportunity. And I said that, you know, I know that at some point of time we'll get to the top. It's just a matter of time, and I wanted to start the journey 25 years ago.
Well, and kudos for you for making that journey. But, you know, you talked about India being on top of the world, and often the storytelling around India has been stereotypical. And as you look at taking the India story global with your brand, with Sabyasachi, and taking the world by storm, so to speak, you know, what is the ambition that you have now to create a premium luxury brand out of India for the world?
You know, I always believe that the world is round and history is cyclical. And if you just look at India's cultural heritage, you know, we were the golden country, and everything was plundered, taken away from us. And a lot of it was appropriated. You know, a lot of what I see as global luxury, if you look at the genesis of it or the roots of it, it comes from this country. And I think it's time that some of us took it back home. And, you know, I don't know how far I'm going to, you know, when I sold my company to Kumar Mangalam, I told him only one thing, that Mr. Birla, the company does not belong to me, does not belong to you. It belongs to the country at large. And we have to do it right, because what happens is there is a lot of younger generation of artists and students who look up to the brand. And as a middle class boy, if I could have broken the glass ceiling, I don't know how far I will be able to take this journey forward, but a lot of people will come up and say, if he could do it, so can I. I think for me, the legacy would be to leave behind a possibility that if we decide to do it collectively, India is going to go straight on the top.
Well, you know, more power to you and more power to the people that you're working with to ensure that that vision, in fact, is a reality. But, you know, speaking about selling your business to Kumar Mangalam Birla, and your journey as an entrepreneur, the decision to actually, in a way, move back, give up, whatever you'd like to, or however you'd like to see it, was that a tough emotional decision? Or did you believe that it was the right thing to do for the brand?
No, I'd already planned it, always. You see, I'm not a selfish entrepreneur, because when you create something that becomes bigger than who you are, with possibilities that can change and shape the trajectory of a country, you have to step back and realize that it doesn't belong to you anymore, it belongs to the people. And I still remember I was, I had already made up my mind that I would do it, but I remember, and if that girl is listening to this telecast, I was at the New Delhi airport and a girl meets me at the airport post-COVID and she says, Mr. Mukherjee, I just wanted to come and tell you that you cannot die. And I was like, and that was a strange conversation to have. And I was like, why would you say this to me? And she said, no, we look up to you. You have so much of idealism in your business. What will happen to us? Because your brand continues to inspire us. And I called up Kumar the next day. I said, okay, fine,
I'm ready.
Let's do the deal. No, we have been talking for a very long time. And you see, often what happens is when personal hubris of an entrepreneur takes over, then you decide to keep the baby or the child just for yourself. And then you grow old and then you can't transition and the brand dies with you. And I was very clear that, it doesn't matter what happens to me, Sabya has to live on. And I don't have any children. And even if I had children, I don't believe in nepotism. I would not give it to them if they were not qualified enough or the right people to transition it to. And I said that, okay, let's collectively create a corporate Sabya and let me spend the next 20 years transitioning it so that even, when I leave, this brand is going to stay on.
This brand is going to stay on. But, speaking of nepotism, Sabya, and I don't know if it's true, but have you really decided that you're not going to design for Bollywood anymore?
No, I didn't say that. I said I never said
That's
that.
I'm not sure if it's true, so I'm asking you.
No, I never said that. I think me and Bollywood has had a great partnership. But, I think the way people look at communication keeps changing. And I think there was a time when people were underconfident and they needed to have influencers and leaders to look up to feel good about themselves. The good thing about the internet is it connected a lot of people. And when you feel like you're a minority and you start connecting with people, and then you realize that you have a community, your confidence rises. And today, I think what's happening, if I look at the influencers, the biggest Sabyasachi influencers are the customers. They don't feel they are any less than Bollywood. And I think the narrative has shifted from influencers. Anyways, I've never really used Bollywood on my runway. Deepika was the only exception. And I told her that when I was doing my 25-year show, this is probably the first and the last time that I'll use a Bollywood star because this was a special moment. We've had a great relationship, personal relationship together. And I truly think in so many ways she represents Brand India. But I think we've always focused on our consumers because for us, our consumers are the real stars.
Well, the consumers are the stars. So let's talk about the consumer, not just the Indian consumer, but also the global consumer that you're hoping to tap into now, Sabya. What's changed? You talked about social media. You talked about the world of influencers and content creators and how that's also shaping the choices that consumers make. In your experience, as someone who understands the fashion industry, as someone who's been part of the fashion industry, what's the big change that you're seeing in terms of consumption and consumer behavior today?
I think self-confidence and self-expression. Truth be told, and I've said this in many forums, that fashion has made a lot of money by feeding on people's insecurities. So the more insecure you kept your consumer, the more they wanted to buy your product because they wanted to feel good about themselves. But what fashion didn't realize for the longest time, that the consumer was getting smarter and sharper. And anyways, I think the Indian consumer is probably the smartest consumer in the world. And, I think that when you have and also at a time, a lot of luxury goods were consumed by the idle rich. Today, if you look at the people who are really buying luxury in India, everybody's working, nobody has time, everybody's self-reliant, everybody has self-confidence, everybody has self-expression. And, then the consumer shifts from being brand supreme to product supreme. A consumer just wants to buy the right product, not the right brand. And at Sabyasachi, we want to get the product right. Whether the brand becomes a super brand or not, it's an outcome of the product, not the brand. And I think globally, when the consumer is going to now realize that that luxury is based on rarity, craftsmanship, authenticity, and provenance, where else can you find a luxury product more unique than what you would find in India? So I think whether people, no matter what happens, no matter how much artfully the spin doctors and the global markets try to dominate India, they can't put India in a corner because it's just not going to be possible because the consumers won't let them.
Can't put India in a corner. So, let's talk about the strategy now to ensure that you actually tap into this big opportunity. You're You're in the heart of New York City, Sabya, today, and I know that there's been a lot of chatter around just what you've been able to create and how you've been able to showcase India there. What's the initial learning and the experience been of taking Brand India global?
You know, even before I took it to America, I think so much of how America views India is so stereotypical. Firstly, I wanted to change that and break that, and I always feel that luxury is built from a point of confidence and never from a point of subjugation. And the problem has always been that we have never believed in ourselves for the longest time. And I think that when you start believing in who you are, and that's when the dynamics change.
Speaking of the dynamics changing, and you were talking about the consumer and the consumer being your biggest influencers, so to speak. The Sabya bride, you kind of turned that on its head, right? I mean, the Indian brides were always coy, demure, shy. There was almost this invisibilization, and you kind of turned that around completely. How did that happen? I mean, was this because of the influence of the strong women in your life? What was it that you were trying to tell by way of attempting to sort of turn this on its head?
See, I don't really understand gender inequality because in my head it doesn't exist. I've been raised by, thank you. And, sometimes I tell that, the problem with gender inequality actually starts with bad parenting. Because I think if you raise your boys to believe that they're not better than women, but they're equal to women, I think men will be far more sensitive to gender parity than they are today. And, I have grown up with women who I've looked up to. My friends growing up, my girlfriends growing up, they were very strong women. And, I was in awe of them. And let's talk about the bridal market, for instance. So I'll tell you a small story. So I meet a lot of women in India, mothers in India, who believe that I can matchmake for their daughters. And
can you?
No, I don't even have a social life. So, and then they come and tell me that, I have a real problem. I'm not being able to sleep at night. I said, why? I said, my daughter's not getting married. She refuses to get married. And I'm like, all right. And she's 36. Her biological clock is ticking. Maybe she'll not be able to produce children. I'm like, all right. I said, okay, I want to ask you a question. Where did you send your daughter for education? She said, I sent my daughter to Stanford. I said, So you will send your daughter to Stanford. You will give her the best of education. You will give her wisdom. You will give her experience. You will give her confidence. And then you'll tell her to come back, be subjugated to a man and make babies. I said, that doesn't work anymore. So, the way we look at weddings in this country is also going to shift because, today, women have realized, either through communication or through social media or just being there, watching forums like this, that they don't need a man always to fulfill their destinies. They can do it themselves. And so the entire construct of marriages in India, which was about patriarchy trying to, so I'll tell you, there were so many reasons why people got married. Sometimes it was never love. Sometimes it was an escape. Sometimes it was just an arrangement, like a business arrangement. And sometimes it was just a hopelessness that my life would change. But today in India, when I see younger kids, they don't even come with their parents to buy a bridal outfit. They'll come, they're wearing jeans and they'll come with an American Express card. They'll swipe the card and say, I can't even come for a fitting because I have a boardroom meeting. Just send the outfit home. And I see how the country has changed. When I look at my stores and I look at my consumers, I could not believe that these consumers would have existed 20 years ago. So India has completely changed.
Isn't that a very small minority that we're still talking about, Sabya?
There is something called trickle down. But even if it exists on top, slowly and slowly it's going to trickle down. What excites me is the fact that there is visible change. I'm not going to quantify the change, but what gives me hope if change exists, it's going to percolate. It's just a matter of time.
Well, we certainly hope so, and we hope that it speeds up, and that's the pace of change that we're hoping to accelerate here through these conversations. But what excites you today? Besides the work that you're already doing, is there a passion project that you're working on? Is film something that you would want to consider as part of the future creative endeavors?
No, my plate is full. There's so much to do. what excites me today is actually the young India. I think what's happened earlier, in India, status was defined by money or the distance of money between people to people. But right now, for young India, status is defined by purpose. And I think that when you look at the younger children, and there are many women who are in this room will say that my child does not understand me. We have a huge generation gap because of the fact that the way I think of what is important and what my child thinks is important is very drastic and very dramatic. I think for a lot of people in the country, because probably because of the British rule or the traumas of the partition, I think one of the biggest thing was about making money. It was never even about making wealth, which is one of the reasons I think the country never lived up to its greatest potential. But the younger children today are being able to realize how to create business with both the hard power and the soft power of the country. And they want to create business that generates wealth and not generate just money. And I think there's a lot of hope that with that, with that new wave of Indian entrepreneurs who are coming in with idealism, they don't want to gather black money like their parents. They want to have global businesses. They want to make sure that the businesses get valued globally, recognized globally, and they want to create businesses where they can harness both the soft power and the hard power of the country.
Well, wealth and value creation and a sense of purpose driving that, that's certainly, hopefully going to be the way forward for India's first generation entrepreneurs. And you're right, we're seeing a plethora of them at this point in time. But, there's something very interesting about you, Sabya, and I think that in the context of the conversations that we're having here about women and around women is important to hear what you have to say. You don't believe in perfection. You, in fact, believe in the magic of imperfection, right?
Perfection is so much of a societal construct that, I think, we are constantly telling people that you're not good enough to be able to make them buy more. And, somewhere down the line, this constant, this constant marketing to tell people that you need to buy more because you're not good enough doesn't really work because A, it's not sustainable. Secondly, you lose the confidence of the consumer because then the consumer is saying, okay, you know what, this is enough, I'm walking out. I think you grow businesses beautifully by giving your consumers confidence that you're just good the way you are. And, at Sabya, we have always said that to our consumers because I don't think we try to create imagery that is so far away that you can't reach. I think
the price tags.
No, there's a reason for the price tag. See, one of the greater agendas of Sabya is also to keep craft harnessed at its highest stages. And let me tell you, a lot of my crafts people are women. And I think, if you don't rise the price of craft up, if you don't rise the acknowledgement of craft up, craft is going to disappear. I say that, there's a lot that a lot of global economies can do that India cannot do yet. But there's a lot that India can do that other countries can never do, and that comes from India's soft power. And I think if corporate India was not to understand how valuable India's soft power is, and if we didn't do it to protect it, craft needs to be made into a business. Craft should not be about pledges and charity and help. Craftsmen need to get their children back into the business. And I've always said, I've seen this movie called Help, where a lady tells another woman that, courage often skips a generation. And I took a little from there and I said, courage can skip a generation, but craft cannot. Because if craft skips a generation, craft dies. And if India's craft was to die, India's soft power would crash. I think this country still probably does not realize, and corporate India still probably does not realize how powerful India's soft power is and how, you can have medical services, you can have IT, but a lot of other countries can do that too. But what you can do with your soft power, because it is so unique to this country, nobody else can do.
No, and that's a very, very important point that you make. But do you worry today, Sabya, that we are at a point which is almost an existential crisis for a whole host of arts and artisans across this country? I mean, you were talking about the fact that this shouldn't be treated like a charity. It shouldn't be treated like a CSR project. What kind of interventions do you believe we need at this point in time to ensure that we keep this soft power alive?
we don't need to do much because evolution will take care of itself. Because I'll tell you, so we were at the age of influence, which is moving into the age of intelligence. AI is going to come in. And I personally think that AI in many sectors, especially in performing arts and art, will be very short-lived. Because after the age of intelligence will come the age of wisdom. And when the age of wisdom comes in and people realize that the greatest gift to humanity is humans themselves and we should not robotize our existence so much that we forget to be human beings, then people will realize that art and craft is going to be the most important expression of humanity. We don't have to do much. Evolution will take care of itself.
We certainly hope so. We certainly hope so. But, what keeps you grounded? What keeps you sane? What keeps you centered in the world that you live in? How do you ensure that Sabya stays true to who Sabya is?
Calcutta, my friend circle from school, for them, if I'm talking about the fact that, I could not make a shipment in time, they will say, what are you talking about? I have real problems. My child failed in geography. And also my family, my aunts, when I go to a wedding and go to a family wedding, they'll ask me 2 questions. And, and I have the answer for the first one, the second I can't answer ever. Because they say, who wears your clothes and where do they go? So I think there's always reality check when you're in Calcutta.
There always is a reality check. But who's your current muse? Where are you drawing inspiration from today?
Tagore had a very beautiful poem which loosely translated said that, I've traveled all over the world looking for beauty. I've spent a lot of money, traveled over forests and hills, only to realize when I came back home that beauty lay on a dewdrop on a blade of grass right next to my doorstep. And, I'm 51. I've traveled all over the world. And when I come back home to my muse, which is Calcutta.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. But as you look back at your entrepreneurial journey, and for many women and men who are watching this, what are some of the lessons, some of the non-negotiables that you would leave us with in wanting to set something up that has an enduring legacy that lives beyond you?
Oh, I could go on and on, but I'll make it. I think idealism matters. I think what also matters is excellence, because I think the problem that I face with a lot of people is we constantly keep shortchanging excellence for profit. That's not sustainable. If you look at Hermes, for instance, they were never shortchanged excellence, and they're probably one of the most profitable company with a very strong EBITDA. And they continued to grow when every other brand was in crisis. And to entrepreneurs, I would only say something that, don't complain about your journey. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're supposed to be alone. Because if you're a visionary, you're always going to be ahead of everybody else. Don't complain if people don't understand, because you have to believe in yourself. Again, quoting Tagore, he had said that, the fight or the tempest is not outside, it's within you. You have to overcome your own fears. It's always going to be a hard journey. It's always going to be a tiring journey, and it's always going to be a lonesome journey. But if you stay on the path, there will always be light at the end of the tunnel. Don't give up.
Don't give up. And to the women who wear Sabya and those who aspire to wear Sabya as well, what would you tell them?
I remember when Sushmita Sen got married, she became Miss Universe, and she said something about women. And I just say, I think it's such a privilege to be born a woman. Because you see, I think there is so much of sensitivity that you have that a man will never have. And today, when the world goes to an age of wisdom, I think women will lead because, I've always said that, between IQ and EQ, EQ is way higher and it's very rare. And I find a lot of EQ in women because women truly understand the meaning of empathy.
There was a reason we called him the feminist, and it's very, very clear why. But Sabyasachi Mukherjee, are there spaces, untapped spaces, virgin territory that you haven't forayed into yet that you would like to foray into?
Well, I would like to make a movie someday, and I want to get into the food and beverage and hospitality business. My friends have been telling me for the longest time. But there's a lot more to do. There's beauty coming in, there's sunglasses coming in, shoes coming in.
Sunglasses company, shoes company, beauty company, all of that.
Yeah, we've just got into fine arts. So it's a beautiful life. There are more and more people coming from all over the world wanting to work with us, because you know what we've done is we've managed to create an exceptional brand, because I've never shortchanged idealism for profit. It had been a very long journey. It had been a very painful journey. But, you know, we've reached the tipping point where we are realizing that it's beginning to pay off.
So if there was to be a movie on Sabyasachi Mukherjee, what would it be called?
My life in Calcutta.
Sabya, thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Sabyasachi Mukherjee, we wish you the very best of luck with all your future endeavors. The next 25 years, may they bring you more success, more happiness, and may you truly take India global. Thank you so much for your time here this
Thank
evening.
you, everyone.
Thank you very, very much.
What an inspiring conversation. Once again, a huge thank you to the phenomenal Sabyasachi Mukherjee for sharing such powerful insights on the influence of strong women, the beauty of imperfections, and his journey of building a unique and timeless brand. Your stories and vision have truly enriched us. Back on stage. And now, if you thought the inspiration peaked, think again. Tonight isn't just about discussions, it's about celebrating action, impact, and leadership. We're about to honor the women who aren't just envisioning a better future, they are building it, they are leading it, and redefining what's possible. These trailblazers have shattered barriers, transformed industries, and inspired change. They embody the spirit of future female forward. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause as we felicitate the future female forward women icons of the year 2025. And to do the honors, it is my privilege again to invite Hitendra Dave, CEO of HSBC India, and Ashish Thawan, the founder and CEO of the Convergence Foundation, to the stage. Well, our first women icon, she's a trailblazer, a record breaker, and a true inspiration. Please join me in celebrating the incredible journey of Kamya Karthikeyan. At just 16 years old, she became the youngest Indian and the second youngest girl in the world to summit Mount Everest from the Nepal side. By 17, she had conquered the 7 summits, becoming the youngest female in the world to achieve this feat.
Kamya, congratulations. All of 17, ladies and gentlemen, and it's already been to the Everest and back. Kamya, what gave you the confidence, what gave you the strength and the belief to be able to do this?
First of all, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It's an amazing honor to be in such amazing company of incredible women from so many different fields. And my journey started with the mountains when I was just about 3 years old in the foot of the Sahyadris. And I started climbing in the Himalayas when I was just 9 years old. And I think a lot of it was because of the support from my parents. I know that a lot of speakers also spoke about it in the first panel that we had. My father was my inspiration. He started climbing in the Himalayas with the Indian Navy where he's serving when I was just about 3. And as a curious child, I used to ask my mom, why does Dadu leave us to go to the mountains again and again? And instead of just shunning down my questions, she said, let's go find out for ourselves. And she took me on my first ever Himalayan trek when I was just 7 years old. And I think ever since then, it was just an addiction. And I just wanted to keep going back to the mountains again and again. Then again in 2017, I climbed my first 6,000 meter peak, Mount Stoke Kangri in Ladakh. And right after coming back from the summit, after about 19 hours of continuously walking, my parents reached our tent an hour after me, and they saw me sitting in the tent eating Maggie and solving Sudoku. So my dad, surprised, came and asked me, Kamya, do you realize what you've just climbed is higher than the highest peaks in 4 of the continents? And my answer to that was, can I climb the other 3 as well then? So that is how this mission started, and I think it's just the beginning. So thank you so much for acknowledging it, and I hope it inspires a lot more girls to take to unconventional sports and adventures in the future as well.
Certainly will. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Kamya. Thank you so much for being here today.
Many congratulations, Kamya. Moving on, please welcome Hema Kumari, Sarpanch Pekeru, Andhra Pradesh. Real transformation doesn't start in boardrooms, it starts at the grassroots, and as Sarpanch, she has turned promises into action, driving better education, infrastructure and livelihoods for her community.
हेमा जी, बहुत बहुत बधाई आपको और thank you so much for joining us here this evening. आप शेयर करना चाहेंगे what has been the experience of being a sarpanch और क्या कहेंगे आप सबको?
First of all, I feel very happy to honor this function. I'm feeling very happy, and I respect all delegates from different states of India. I am the Sarpanch of village Pekeru. I recently attended United Nations from India. About the conference about the women empowerment regarding health, education and financial independence. Here I learned more things in United Nations now to raise the voice of the women in the meetings and also encourage the women in sports. Also, we have to discuss about we have to increase the education of the female in the discrimination areas. We have in my village, since it is a rural area, we faced so many problems regarding health issues of the women and also discrimination in female education. I have to fight for that, and I encouraged parents and conducting meetings to encourage them to support female education. We increased the number of girl students in our schools. And also, we encourage financial independence of the female by joining them so many self-help groups and need to improve their financial independence status. I make my village women-friendly Gram Panchayat. Thank you for this opportunity and honor for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Hema ji. Thank you so much, and we wish you the very best of luck. Your voice is being heard loud and clear, not just here in India, but globally as well. And thank you for being such an inspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Thank you.
Many congratulations, Hema. More power to you.
Hema ji, photo. Center. I know, everyone, that's true. Thank you. Thank you.
More power to you, Hema, and many congratulations.
Thank you.
Our next woman icon is a visionary and a champion of sight. Please welcome Dr. Aanchal Gupta, changing lives through her work as a senior ophthalmologist and founder of the Netram Eye Foundation. Aanchal has dedicated her career to making eye care accessible, restoring vision and giving thousands a clearer, brighter future. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Aanchal, congratulations from all of us here at Future Female Forward. One step forward, yes. I want to understand from you, your journey so far, and more importantly, the line of sight you have on the road ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. Especially people who have chosen to tread on the harder way. It's always very exciting when the work gets acknowledged. So I started off my college, Maulana Azad, some 12 years back, and I was easily taken up by the best corporate in Delhi. I was taken up as cornea consultant with Fortis, with a newly opened Swanky hospital at Gurgaon. But every time I would walk on the corridors, I would feel that this is not my calling. If students like me who have studied from the best universities in the country, if they don't provide medical care to the ones who can't afford and they are only available to the polished, then that is not right. And that's where I started Netram Eye Foundation. Netram is a super specialty eye center, and it's also an NGO working across 24 states of the country, where we provide preventive eye care. And it has been a very exciting journey because it was all started from scratch. But the calling was so pure. It was always there inside me. I would have gotten up in the middle of the night and figured out how I can do it. It was very difficult, and that is why it was so exciting. And what I would say to everyone here, if young folks like us, if we don't change the world, who will? And if not now, then when?
May you continue to change the world, Anchal. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Congratulations once again.
Many congratulations, Anchal. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our next woman icon, Chef Amninder Sandhu. She stands for authenticity in a world of fleeting trends, a pioneer in heritage, slow cooking and sustainability. She's leading the way in Indian fine dining with a zero-waste approach that's both revolutionary and deeply rooted in tradition. Many congratulations.
Then I'll get the mic. Chef, congratulations. Everyone here wants to know what's the secret sauce.
I think it's the Ras in Rasoi which inspires me to do what I do. The food has power. You know, through a delicious meal, you can touch someone's heart. And inspiring young female chefs of this country inspires me to push harder. And I've been professionally cooking for 25 years now. This is my 25 years too. Yeah. So empowering women and uplifting women with me along the way is what I'm really focusing on right now.
Thank you very much. We hope you continue to cook up a storm for the next 25 years. That clearly is the running theme. 25 is the lucky number this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much, Chef Amninder Sandhu.
Many congratulations. Thank you, Ashish Dhawan, for doing the honors. Now, for the next set of icons, I would like to invite Rajesh Warrior, EVP Global Head of Operations and Chairman and Managing Director, Cognizant India, to join us on stage. Also, I would like to call Mr. Hitendra Dave back on stage. Sir, yes, we need you throughout. Next, we honor a leader who commands respect both in the skies and on the ground. Please welcome Group Captain Monica Bijlani, Director Media and Public Relations at the Indian Air Force, a powerful voice and a pioneering leader within the Indian Armed Forces. Group Captain Monica Bijlani hasn't just shaped public narratives, she's courageously broken barriers and redefined what leadership looks like to inspire us all. Keep the applause going, ladies and gentlemen.
Group Captain Bijlani, what an absolute pleasure it is to have you here with us on the Future Female Forward stage. A particularly proud moment for me because I am part of the Indian Air Force family. My father was a fighter pilot in the Air Force as well. So, Group Captain Bijlani, as young women looking at the armed forces as a career, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that go live your dreams. It's a lovely place to be. Shireen and I are testimony to that. And you'll get equal opportunities and you'll get a level playing field. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And once again, thank you very, very much for joining us here this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Group Captain Monica Bijlani.
Many congratulations. Moving on, please give a huge round of applause to Archana Priyadarshini, partner at Endurance Capital. Now, venture capital is evolving and Archana is ensuring women-led businesses aren't left behind. She champions bold ideas, investing in ventures that push boundaries, disrupt industries, and redefine success.
Archana, we A, don't have that many women in the VC world, and B, we don't have that much VC money going towards funding women-led entrepreneurial startups. What will you do to change that? You've already made some pretty significant bets, but how do you ensure that we continue to build on that momentum?
See, first of all, my journey started out of serendipity. When I was bored of my other journeys, corporate journeys, then I became a VC. And finally I found there is so much to do. And when I started talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, and then I found that there are women entrepreneurs, they are not getting funded because of biased approach and a lot of thought processes which people think that they won't be successful, they will have their own issues. So I have started funding a lot of women entrepreneurs in my career. So my biggest success is Bank Open, which is the 100 unicorn in India, and their founders are women. So I'm very proud of that. And now going forward, when I fund any company, then I make sure they employ more and more female employees. So this is one of my mission. And you ask me how to take it forward. So, I see a very encouraging trend in India. A lot of women are becoming VCs these days. And I try to mentor them and share my journey. And it's a hard industry for anyone, even for the successful ones. But if you are there standing doing a good job, then it inspires more and more people. And that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, and may you continue to fund more successful female entrepreneurs in India. Thank you very, very much for joining us here. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause.
Moving on, let's give a warm welcome to our next icon, the first woman to lead a profitable unicorn in India, Ruchi Kalra, co-founder of Off Business, a force of nature in India's fintech and B2B commerce arena. Ruchi didn't just achieve profitability, she made history as the first woman to lead a profitable unicorn in India, an extraordinary feat of leadership.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hear a lot about unicorns in India. What we don't often hear enough about are the profitable unicorns in India. And going back to the why question, I think Ruchi Kalra addresses the why you should invest in women. And she is, of course, a founder of a profitable unicorn, not a mythical creature at all. Ruchi, congratulations. What has it taken for you to build Off Business? What would you tell other women who are looking at starting up today?
Firstly, thank you so much. Really privileged. I think I heard this esteemed panel today. We spoke about what corporate India needs to do for women. My key belief is that first we need to think about what we need to do for ourselves, right? There is a metric. There are 20% of MSMEs are led by women. But if you look at another statistic, which says 70% of informal micro enterprises are led by women, right? And why is that so? Because women feel the need to provide for their families. And hence, there you see a lot of women in leading businesses, right? Smaller businesses, so that they can provide for the family. I think at our level, it's very important that we also find out a need for ourselves, so that you don't have so many women dropping off. And for me, Off Business, Oxiso is like a baby. It's like nurturing a baby, right? You nurture a family, you nurture a baby. And that's my objective, or that keeps me going. Similarly, I would want women sitting here, or anybody whom we can reach out to, saying that it's equally important to say, what's your need? And there should be a need to say, I want my own identity. Like most of us standing here are standing not because we need to earn that much. Maybe we've reached that level. But there is a need to have your identity and inspire others to have their identity. And we stand up as different people, climbing mountains, taking care of a village, taking care of company, because we can nurture and build our own identity. So that's all I'll say, and thank you so much for this. Right?
Thank you very, very much, Ruchi. May we all continue to build on our identities, keep reinventing ourselves. Thank you very much for sharing your journey here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Ruchi Kalra.
Our next icon is a force multiplier in sustainability and inclusive leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Vaishali Nigam Sinha, co-founder Renew and chairperson Sustainability, a globally recognized voice. Vaishali is a World Economic Forum Diversity, Equity and Inclusion champion and the driving force behind the Renew Foundation, creating impactful change. In fact, today is her birthday as well, so wishing her a very happy birthday from the entire team.
Happy birthday, Vaishali, and congratulations. Why embarrassing you? We've got a big party here for you, but you know, very few women working in the sustainability space, especially in the sustainability space globally. What does it take to cut it there, and what would you say to other women who are probably looking at that as an option?
Thank you, Shireen, and thank you HSBC for being an ally for all the women here. You know, I think sustainability is, you know, it's an area which is, given climate change is round the corner. I mean, not round the corner, for the last couple of decades, you know, what we do in sustainability is a must. It's not something which is a choice anymore. And I think it's very easy to have women work anywhere. I mean, why sustainability or why engineering? I think there's enough for women to do. Women can, you know, go to space, they can go and fly planes, and they can, you know, be in the Air Force. And so, I mean, sustainability is pretty damn simple. So it is, but, you know, I think the more interesting part is the whole business model around sustainability. And I think I echo what everybody said. You know, we just have to believe in ourselves. And if we put our heads down to doing things, we do it well. And I think it's a common known fact that girls outperform you know, boys in high school and college and everywhere. So I just wonder sometimes, why do we need to think so much about why hire a woman and why promote them and so on and so forth? I think we are very smart, and we really need to shake the world up to accept that. And yeah, but thank you for doing this, and more power to all of you.
Thank you, Vaishali. May you continue to shake the world up, as you said, and maybe see more women do what they want to do, follow their passion and their dreams. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Vaishali.
I'd also like to thank Mr. Rajesh Varia for doing the honors. Mr. Dave Shireen, request you remain on stage. Now joining us for the next set of awards is Prabha Narasimhan, MD and CEO, Colgate-Palmolive India. A huge round of applause for her as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's join hands in welcoming Padmaja Chunduru, the former MD, NSDL and Indian Bank, for our next woman icon. A guiding force in an industry built on trust, Padmaja Chunduru has led with integrity, foresight and an unwavering commitment to building strong financial institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause.
You know, Hitendra Dave said it best. He said it's such a privilege to be here on the same stage as you, and what a privilege it is for all of us here. You know, as I said, we stand on the shoulders of giants like yourself. You know, what is it that you would like to leave us with in terms of lessons that you've learned that you believe other young women may benefit from?
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you, HSBC, Mr. Dave, and thank you, Cognizant, and I think Udayti, the dashboard. I think what we were missing was this quantification or the measurement of, you know, where we are progressing. Unless we know where we are, how do we progress? So my lessons, I think, I agree with Mr. Dave. He had mentioned we belong to the same industry, BFSI. So yes, it is a meritocratic industry, and that's why probably there were quite a few women who headed banks and other financial institutions. I myself went from banks to NSDL, so capital markets and financial industry. I think I would have loved to see more women at the top or at least at the senior levels. Something that is 28% at the entry level in banks, again tapers to 6% or even less at the senior levels, and at the board level, somehow despite all SEBI efforts and company, the industry or the government efforts, what I say is if there is one woman on the board, then they think the box is ticked, and so we can look out for rest. So this I am finding now that I'm an independent director. Some companies do have that open-mindedness that yes, women are not just women, they are also meritorious candidates. That said, I think especially for the BFSI industry women, I would say, make yourself visible, speak up. I've been really crying hoarse in all my meetings, asking the women to articulate their point of view. You can't expect people to come and keep asking you all the time. Speak up, be visible, take decision-making roles, be there to solve problems. I think that would solve many problems at home also, once we know how to handle things in a branch or anywhere. I think, and win at home. I think, like charity, equality begins at home. So you please take that. And one more thing I would like to leave you with is that 35 years back when we started our career, there were certain problems for women. And I always think that, just like we should not be repeating our mistakes, we should not be, talking of the same problems after 3 decades. New problems is very good, but not old problems again and again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We hope that we can put a rest to many of those old problems that we've been talking about ad nauseum. But thank you and congratulations once again. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your encouraging words. Moving on, let's celebrate the resilient nature of today's women. Give a warm welcome to Chetna Gala Sinha, founder and chairperson, Mandeshi Foundation and Mandeshi Mahila Sahakari Bank. When financial systems failed rural women, Chetna didn't just challenge them, she built a new one and empowered thousands with access to credit, training and financial independence. A huge round of applause for Chetna Gala Sinha.
Congratulations. I've had the privilege or the good fortune of having many conversations with her over the last 20 plus years. And what a pleasure it is to see you still doing what you do and do it so effortlessly. I know it hasn't been a painless journey, but it's been a journey of great impact. As you look back today, but more importantly, as you look ahead, what is it that you believe we need to change? What do we need to fix?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dave. Thank you. Such an honor to be here. And thank you so much. So the first thing I would just like to say that when I was coming here, it's like we were talking about 25 years, but I remember that 28 years back when we started a Mahila Bank, everyone, women's bank in rural area, women want to save, women want to mobilize capital, everyone said no. I mean, families said no, businesses said no, regulators said no, that you cannot get the license. And these women, street vendors, milk vendors, they just didn't keep quiet. And finally, we got the license, and I'm so proud to share with you that Mandeshi Mahila Bank is the bank which has given dividend to street vendors, milk vendors, women who are doing all these business. And every year, I would just invite, just to attend our annual general meeting of Mandeshi Bank, which is in a small village in Satara district. Thousands of women come to this AGM, celebrate that, and these are the women, first time in India, who are getting dividend of this from this bank every year. So that is a very big lesson from women. And the another thing, when you are talking about the next, right? So this year we touched 1 million women entrepreneurs. 1 million women entrepreneurs who are in small towns, small villages. They came from informal economy, but these 1 million entrepreneurs, they have created 2 million jobs. So just imagine, Mandeshi Bank's balance sheet is just mixed businesses, just 450 crore. But 2 million jobs, 1 million women entrepreneurs, and this year, as you're talking about looking forward, we are creating I mean, Sabya was here. Women from village, artisan women's, they are creating brand. And with this brand, we are on open network digital commerce, and we have 1,000 brands. So thank you so much. And I would just say that, you know, when I ask women that everybody tells you no. So what makes you grounded? And you know what they said? Not capital, not credit, not money, courage. So I would just say that you may find so many people around you, they are very courageous. You can make their courage as your capital, because I'm making their courage as my capital. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chetna Galasena. Ladies and gentlemen, a story of commitment, capital, and enormous courage. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Many congratulations. Our next woman icon is a renowned clinical psychologist. Dr. Shefali Sabari has redefined how we understand relationships, self-awareness, and personal growth. Put your hands together for Shefali as he joins us on stage. A New York Times best-selling author, Shefali is a pioneer in conscious parenting and a global voice in psychology, empowering millions to break generational cycles and live authentically.
Well, you know, you're going to listen to much more of her. She's going to be in conversation with Tara in just a moment from now. But Dr. Shefali, thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Congratulations. And, you know, what is it that you would like to give them as a teaser before we get down to your full conversation?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for this honor. I'm so honored to share this space with all of you. I think what we're going to talk about with Tara is about how the home and how us parents can truly empower our next generation.
Well, may you continue to inspire parents, and may you continue to inspire the next generation, and you will hear more from her in just a second. But once again, thank you so much, and congratulations to Dr. Shefali for joining us here this evening.
Now, some leaders work within the system. Shanti Kambaram, Deputy Managing Director, Kotak Mahindra Bank, transforms it. Please welcome her with a warm applause. She has driven digital transformation, corporate banking expansion, and financial agility in a rapidly evolving economy. She's not just shaping finance, she's reshaping who it serves.
Congratulations. Well, one of the legends in the BFSI space, Shanti Kamram, what an absolute pleasure it is to have you join us here at Future Female Forward. You know, we've been listening to stories of courage, commitment, balance sheets, and capital as well. As you look at the journey that you've made, but more importantly, is the journey you want to make from here, what is it that you'd like to leave us with?
Firstly, thank you very much for the honor. I must say I'm sharing the stage with two very accomplished women. I don't want you to make you feel left out, Hitendra, but I'd say a very accomplished gentleman too. So give him a big hand. Well, it's been 35 years in financial services, and a long one at that. And when I look back, I think there were very few women. But banking has always produced a lot of women. And there are a few things and traits that I think that are very important, and I'd like to share with this audience. First of all, most important, to aspire. And I think if there is one thing I tell women, aspire. Because I think that's the very first step to achieving and attaining something. Second, love what you do and do what you love. I think the two are the same. Then you begin to own what you do rather than work somewhere or work at what you do. Third, never give up. Come what may, never give up, and you will always succeed. So Shireen, BFSI, as you know, has its ups, has its downs. I've seen them all. I've seen the market cycles. I've seen the passion, the depth, the heights, etc. But it's exciting, and I can tell you it's a privilege to be a woman. So enjoy it, be successful, and I hope to see many, many, many such successes as we go forward.
Shanti Kamram, thank you so much for joining us here this evening, and we do hope that we will continue to see many women grace this stage here in the future. Thank you very much for sharing your inspiring story with us.
Many congratulations, ma'am. I would also like to thank Prabha Narasimhan for doing the honors. Talking about our next icon, she's a true legend who has shaped India's artistic landscape as a singer, actor, composer, and writer. A huge round of applause for Ela Arun. Shireen and Mr. Dave, hold on. While she comes on stage, there's a special surprise for her. Ela Arun, we have a special surprise for you. Requesting Piyush Pandey and Prasoon Pandey to join us on stage as proud brothers to give this special honor to the legendary sister. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, keep the applause going. Our woman icon, Ela Arun.
You are a force of nature. Before we get to Ela Arun, let me ask your brother something that we should know about her.
See, I was one of the pioneers of this female forward. मेरा batting order ये था यार. I was child number 8 after 7 women. So I salute you all, and I salute you.
Ela ji, as you look at the way that you've navigated your career, the way that you've been able to make the choices that you've made, what gave you the courage? What gave you the conviction? What made you feel that you could stand out in a society where women are told so desperately to fit in?
बहुत देर बाद मैं हिंदी में बात करूंगी. इतनी देर से मैं घबरा रही थी. एज सबिया सेड, स्टेज क्यों हिंदी में थिएटर करती हूँ, और मैं सोच रही थी इतनी बैंकिंग, इतना पैसा, इतना कॉर्पोरेट, इतनी फंडिंग जो मेरे पास है ही नहीं, तो मैं क्या बोलूंगी. मैं इतनी घबरा रही थी. थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर कॉलिंग माई 2 brothers. ओ माई गॉड, आई वॉज वेरी नर्वस. आई आस्क्ड इशिता, एम आई सपोज टू टॉक. मैं आपको सिर्फ ये कहूंगी कि जिस घर से मैं आती हूँ वहाँ 7 लड़कियां थी. सबसे बड़ी लीडर मेरी माँ थी, और जिन्होंने कभी हमें ना रोका ना टोका. मध्यम वर्गीय, मिडिल क्लास फैमिली. एंड फर्स्ट थिंग, लेट मी टेल यू व्हाई आई एम हियर. पीयूष रैंग मी अप. ही सेज शिरीन जो है बहुत अच्छी लड़की है, बड़ी बुद्धिमान है, बहुत अच्छा बोलती है, उसके लिए तुम्हें जाना है टू सेलिब्रेट. सो आई केम हियर नॉट टू गेट एन अवार्ड. और जब आपने किसी ने कहा कि मैं 35 साल से कर रही हूँ, तब मुझे अच्छा लगा. भैया धीरे धीरे उम्र के करीब आ रहा है. मैं 45, बिकॉज आई वॉज थिंकिंग 45 years से आई एम डूइंग थिएटर एंड फोक थिएटर एंड थिएटर. और उसमें हिंदी के बारे में मैं आपसे ये कहूंगी, HSBC में मेरा अकाउंट है, उतना बड़ा नहीं है, पर हिंदी को कोई कॉर्पोरेट सपोर्ट नहीं करता है. हिंदी के लिए एक लाइन है कि हिंदी उस बूढ़ी माँ की तरह है जिसे बाहर ले जाते हुए हर लोग शर्माते हैं. तो इसमें थिएटर करना और उस औरत की आवाज को, विमेन की वॉइस को थिएटर से पहुंचाना, ये मैंने करने की कोशिश की. और सबसे बड़ी लीडर, एज आई सेड, वाज माय मदर, जिन्होंने सब बहनों को पढ़ाया. हमारे यहाँ सब कोई MA BA डॉक्टर जो भी आप कहेंगे, बैंकिंग में नहीं पहुंचे कोई भी. सो वी हैव बीन डूइंग बिकॉज ऑफ विमेन ओनली, एंड आई एम प्राउड टू बी अ वुमन. थैंक यू सो मच. ये अवार्ड मेरे लिए बहुत प्रेशियस है, क्योंकि मैं सोच रही थी एक यंग लड़की जिसने पहाड़ पे चढ़ा, उसको आपने दिया, मैं सीढ़ी नहीं चढ़ पाऊंगी तो कैसे इस अवार्ड को लूंगी. और जहां तक सबिया की बात है, वो बहुत दिलदार आदमी है. आप कह रहे हैं कि उन्होंने सबसे बढ़िया जाना कमजोरी औरत की. ही वाज सेइंग कि इसलिए करती हैं शादियां क्योंकि दे आर नाउ कॉन्फिडेंट. नो, दे वांट टू वेयर हिज ड्रेस. और इसका सबसे बड़ा कारण मैं आपको बताऊं, पहली ऐसी ब्राइड होगी जो मेरी डॉटर है, इशिता अरुण, जिसने कंडीशन लगाई थी कि शादी तभी करूंगी जब सबिया साची की ड्रेस आएगी. सो आई वेंट टू हिम एंड ही न्यू कि मैं तो थिएटर की हूं, और टैग तो आपको पता ही इनका क्या होता है. मैंने देखा और मैंने कहा वेरी गुड, मैं चल दी. Then he said, Ila, don't worry, we'll settle it later. कई साल लगे मुझे चुकाने में. Thank you very much. And all you women, I have written one song. उस song ने 6 million से ज्यादा पता नहीं कितने million चले गए थे. उसमें मैंने पहले ही rap में कह दिया था, vote for Ghagra. So I vote for all of you.
The indomitable Ila Arun. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Shireen, I don't think we can let her go without singing a song.
इसका जवाब मैंने तैयार किया था. बैंकर से आपने नहीं कहा कि पैसा फेंको. उस लड़की से नहीं कहा कि पहाड़ चढ़ के दिखाओ. बड़े बड़े लोग आए थे. गाना मैं फ्री में नहीं गाऊंगी.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the extraordinary Ila Arun, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Shireen. What an extraordinary celebration of leadership. A huge thank you to Hitendra Dave, Shireen, Piyush and Prasoon Pandey. And ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for our future female forward women icons 2025. Thank you all for joining us today evening. Now let's talk about the place from where the change should actually commence. Home. Before workplaces and boardrooms, our homes shaped our beliefs about equality, leadership and ambition. The conversations we have, the roles we assign, and the examples we set all influence how gender equity is ingrained from childhood. So how do we reimagine these foundational spaces to break old cycles and ensure true equality starts early? It is my absolute honor to introduce two remarkable thought leaders who bring unique perspectives to this conversation. Dr. Shefali Sabri, globally renowned clinical psychologist, author, and thought leader in conscious parenting. And Tara Singh Vachani, founder of Antara Senior Care, a leader in redefining care well-being across generations, to lead this conversation.
I don't know how we're going to compete with Ilaji after this, but I can say with personal experience, having been a deep admirer of Dr. Shefali's work and shared, personal space with her this weekend, that her energy makes remarkable shifts in different ways. So really thrilled. Thank you, Shireen, for having both of us in conversation about a topic that I know will mean a lot to both men and women in this room. So Dr. Shefali, today's topic, from what I've understood, was creating an equal opportunity workplace. That's what the evening has been about. And a lot of conversation around workplace parity. But I think with you, I'd like to explore the idea that parity actually begins at home, or doesn't begin at home. I think either way that we want to look at it. And that parity between men, women in marriage, men and women as parents, elder, younger. So if we could explore that and start with your years of experience, your personal experience, as well as the thousands of stories you have engaged with over the years, what is really the reality that you see in homes when it comes to parity in all of these different spaces and segments?
So this idea of parity, right, and its opposite is disparity. And sadly, our reality is quite stark and not very hopeful, because we are all fighting to equalize the playing field. So in the best of homes, in the most conscious of homes, women are fighting to become equal. But as long as we keep fighting to achieve parity, we will miss the bigger picture, because parity at the end of the day cannot be achieved through effort. True parity can only be achieved through an awakening of our consciousness. So, yes, of course, we have to create equal opportunity, and we have to push forward the significance of women's rights and send our girls to school. But as long as we are fighting disparity, we will keep fighting upstream. What is truly needed is a radical awakening of our consciousness, where we dismantle this very idea of fighting for our rights. And how do we do that? We do that at the deepest level in the consciousness of the parent. The parent who raises that son. Who raises the son, but not the mother? So if in the mother's consciousness is this idea that she is lesser than, that she is insignificant, that she is not worthy, and when she has a male son, she raises him with this idea unconsciously, subconsciously, that he is greater than, right there you have created disparity. So all seeds of awakening blossom in the consciousness of the mother. And I hate to put the burden on the mother, but it is the mother who is at the vanguard of a new consciousness. And if the mother herself doesn't awaken to her inner power, to her inner parity, if she doesn't feel like she is equalized within herself, if she's fighting a battle, trying to look amazing in a man's world, trying to be the boss babe and the perfect, sexy woman and the perfect mother and the perfect wife, she herself is at odds within herself. The truly awakened mother is one who understands deeply that she has a right to be here. She doesn't have to fight for her worth. She exudes it. She radiates it. It's a very different consciousness. As long as we think we need to equalize the playing field and become equal to men, we have lost half the battle. We should never seek to be equal to men. I mean, no offense, but that is quite a low bar to fight for. We need to seek to feel empowered and worthy as we are. There is no competition outside. And when we arrive at that destination, then the men will follow suit. Our greatest enemy is not the man outside of us. It is our own inner insecurity and unworthiness. And when we women arrive at our power, there is no outer oppressor who can stop us.
And in your best-selling book, The Radical Awakening, which talks about what you just mentioned, can you also embellish for everybody here your personal journey in that awakening? Where did this understanding of exactly what you just mentioned start to come from? What were those pivotal moments in your experience that awakened you? And then I'd like to talk a little bit about men and fathers and all of that back home.
I'm so honored because my mother is here today and my daughter, so I get to have both generations with me. I think as a clinical psychologist, working with woman after woman, mother after mother, and fathers, I began to see that our greatest oppressor is our conditioning. And our conditioning comes from our childhood. It's literally the shampooing of our belief systems that get created at a very young age. And as long as we stay seduced by our conditioning, as long as we believe we are our conditioning, passed down from relatively unconscious parents, as long as we stay trapped, believing we are who our culture tells us we are the role of the good wife or the good daughter or the good mother, we will continue to subjugate ourselves. We women will rise to our greatest power when we co-create, when we understand our co-creation, when we see our co-creation. And women don't like to hear this because it's so much more convenient to blame the oppressive man on the outside. But as long as you blame the oppressor on the outside, you are giving away your power to the oppressor. When you take charge of how you are co-creating your reality, even if it is an oppressive reality, there is a small part of our reality that we are always co-creating. When you take charge of your co-creation, you release the oppressor from any power it can have over you. And I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do. I'm not saying this is convenient. It is a toxic patriarchy that we live within. But we women are part of the co-creation of that toxic patriarchy. So every time we stay small, every time we stay silent at the table, every time we pretend like we don't know what we really know, we are co-creating this toxic patriarchy. A toxic patriarchy is not created only by men. It is created equally by the silent woman who acquiesces her power to the oppressor. So I wrote a book called A Radical Awakening, How to Turn Pain to Power and Reach Your Infinite Potential. And in that book, I speak to women and I encourage them and invite them to go on a journey of self-seeking and growth where they vanquish the oppressor on the outside and truly embody the power within to activate their own renaissance and liberation. Each one of us has the power. We may not have had, so say my mother, who's in her 80s, may tell me, oh, I can't do anything now. You know, I'm too old and culture is what culture is and this is how it was in our generation. Okay, we may not be able to change our circumstance, but we certainly can unlock the cage for our children, for our neighbors' children, for anyone we meet. So we all hold a sacred responsibility to radically awaken, because when each woman radically awakens, she sets the other free.
And you know, on the topic of toxic patriarchy, and you've often talked about how men have actually been, sadly, navigated out of deep emotional connection, and that, you know, it sometimes prevents them to bring out their femininity, the compassion, the EQ. What do you think it'll take to change that and to therefore be able to really have men tap in to the role, the better role or the deeper role or the more intensive role that they can play at home to then be able to influence generations ahead?
Well, I think there's a certain biology that we are limited by. So we women are more naturally, biologically attuned to caregiving. And men are more attuned to performing and providing and doing. That's on the biological level. Sadly, sometimes we stay trapped in that. And culture co-opts a woman's natural ability to take care and tells the woman, oh, now you're so good at taking care, just take care of all of us and ignore yourself. And we women grow up with what I call a toxic femininity, where we give to the extent of our own inner sanctity, where we put others first to our own failing. So we women have to own how we can be toxically feminine, and especially in a culture like India, where the roles tend to be quite divisive, women can take on too much. So to answer your question, how can we encourage men to step up more into their emotional power? Well, we women need to be mindful of how we step out of toxic femininity. Because as long as we overdo and we overperform and we over-caretake and we over-nurture, we've taken that emotional quotient away from the men. So I know you may want me to say, well, let the men do this and make the men do that. But as long as we converse about changing the men, I take away power from the woman. So you'll rarely hear me say what men should do. Stop waiting for men to do anything. And again, no offense meant. They will awaken only in the shadows of our awakening. So men can do whatever they want. Release the man from all power. Don't wait for him to be sensitive to your needs and give you a birthday present or talk to you about how you feel. If he does it and he sits at your table, you can share the space with him. But stop waiting. One part of feminism that I feel particularly impatient with is that we keep talking about the men, what men should do, what men need to do more. Don't wait. We women have enough power within us to activate the change that we need. So if you're in a relationship right now where you're complaining that your man doesn't do too much, you do much less. If you're complaining that the man doesn't take care of your needs, get your needs met. There is always a way for you with your sisters, with your community, to just nullify your dependence on the man. And I'm not saying this to demean the man. I'm saying this to empower the woman. And when you empower yourself to activate your own inner potential, whether the man comes along or not, you are still whole within. One of our problems is that we've conditioned our daughters subconsciously through the Disney fantasies of waiting for the prince or waiting for the one to complete you and your wedding day, wearing your bridal outfit. We've subconsciously conditioned women to believe that there is this magical, mythical being out there that can fulfill you. And then you are just disappointed decade after decade, right? Instead of that, we need to change the narrative for our daughters. There is no the one. Don't put this burden on the man. He cannot hold the burden. The one that you're waiting for is within you.
Thank you. Well, I think that was the energy shake-up. I can see a few of the men shifting very uncomfortably in their seats.
Yeah, the men are like, oh, thank goodness she didn't say anything about us.
But you know, how does one take this exact energy and this deep ability or desire to want to awaken into the workplace? I know we were talking specifically about home and parenting, but I couldn't help think of how does this power and this idea come into the workplace where the truth is more often than not a man is in that position, which is a bit hard to shake up. So how would we navigate that energy in the workplace?
I mean, I cannot tell you how many times in my personal, professional life I have been dismissed by men, negated by men, talked over by the man. I mean, he and I will be sitting in a panel, just the two of us, and he will talk over me and ignore me and forget who I am or my name. And at first I used to get offended. But now I've come to see that the man is also trapped in the same conditioning. He's conditioned. He's not powerful. And just like we are conditioned to believe we are not powerful, we believe it. He believes he's powerful, but he's conditioned to believe that. It isn't a truth. So just like our disempowerment is not a truth, his empowerment is not a truth or a given. So but it's harder to ignore a man who's grown up conditioned to believe he's powerful, right? So we get seduced thinking he is powerful. He's just been conditioned to believe it. True power is never given to anyone. True power can never be conditioned to anyone. It is something that can be awakened only from within. So just like we women are actually not disempowered, in the same way, don't be seduced that the man is powerful, even if he talks over you or ignores you or walks in his big CEO suit. The men need to be checked by us women. And the only way we women can check a man is if we truly believe in our own power. So don't believe it. Don't believe it. And in the politicians right now of our world who walk around with tyrannical power, don't believe it. Don't believe it. If you stop believing that the other has power and truly believe that you have it, they will be checked because they know they don't have the true power unless it's awakened from within. A man in a suit is not powerful. A man with the CEO title is not powerful. So as long as we women are not seduced by titles, by wealth, by status, they won't be allowed to be seduced. So again, all the awakening that we are looking for from the outside happens first within.
So let's assume the awakening has happened and you are therefore a woman and a man and hoping and praying that both the man and the woman in a home have been awakened. What does the narrative, the language, the relationship, the equations look like in that home, which is utopic in my mind at the moment, but I'm sure we can get there. What does it look like for the next generation or for their children? Assume they have, a girl and a boy in their home. What does that look like to you? What are the conversations that could be having or being had at the dinner table? What is the role modeling that could happen? Just share that utopic world in your mind.
It is a utopia, but I'll go along with it. First, I want to say, don't wait for this utopic vision, and don't believe that children, in order for them to grow up to be empowered, you need a man and a woman, a mother and a father. This is not true. I always say that you just need one conscious human being in a child's life to activate their empowerment. Because when we wait for the, oh, my husband needs to be as conscious as me, or my wife needs to be just like me, we actually lose a lot of energy. But how would that utopic ideal situation look like? Well, in a home that is truly awakened, it is a home that is beyond roles, beyond gender, where we understand the biological implications of our gender, but we are not trapped psychologically by those biological definitions only, where we are fluid in our ability to play to our strengths. So if the father is more gentle with the children, the father gets to parent the children more. If the mother is more assertive and able to provide outside the home, more power to her. So in such a utopic home, gender is not necessarily the defining factor, but the strengths of each are the defining factor.
And we often restrict the conversations around parity, and I think I started with that, just between that of men and women. And we sometimes forget, specifically in an Indian context, and I think that drags into the workplace as well, of the older-younger dynamic, and the older-younger male, female, older-younger, female, older-younger, male, older-younger. How do you see that play out in the work that you have done, and what is the advice and guidance that we can, give to all of the people in the room about maybe breaking that disparity?
I always say in conscious parenting that our children are our greatest awakeners. And many parents don't like when I say that, because they see it as I'm stripping away their authority. And parents like to be at a hierarchical pedestal. And so do our elders. Now, elders demand reverence and respect. But that doesn't mean they are wiser. Wisdom comes from an awakening of consciousness, which can only come about when you have done a drastic amount of inner growth. So in cultures like India, where we so beautifully give respect to our elders, we sometimes allow ourselves to get trapped in that hierarchical dynamic. And it would be really powerful for more elders in our lives to understand that just because they're older doesn't mean they are not students of the next generation. And for our children to realize that as much as they are learning from us, they can be empowered to be our awakeners. So wisdom is not about age, certainly not about chronological age. It's really about the age of your awakening. How old are you in terms of your consciousness? And that is the true guidepost of whether you should really follow someone or not. And by that definition, all of us have something to teach each other.
So how does, the new age family structures and dynamics look like to you? I know we may be a bit far off from that becoming a norm, but what do you see as being new ways of parenting, new ways of creating families, new ways of, having the elder-younger dynamic? What are some very radical changes and shifts that you could either encourage or you have seen in structures around you?
Well, I'm really encouraged because I see so much more fluidity, so much more acceptance, so much interchangeability of roles now. We're not getting stuck in our stereotypical roles. And I think our children are, we call them the more woke generation, but they are more awakened to how they don't have to stay in the cages that we used to live under. The ceiling has now, unimposed itself on our consciousness. There is no ceiling as it was when we were growing up. And I see radical shifts in families, but I also see confusion. You know, with every radical shift comes a disorientation and a shift and a regression. And we get scared of change. That's natural. But that doesn't mean that change is not the most important, pivotal thing that we need to lean into. Because when we change and evolve, we shed our old ways and we begin to embrace new ways. And those new ways take us to greater definitions of who we can be. So change and evolution is pivotal. And that brings about fear. But fear is part of the journey. It's not something you can ever get rid of. So befriend your fear, but still evolve and lean into the new changes. And I see amazing ways in which families are creative in creating new definitions for who they need to be.
And, you know, for those of you, I'm sure all of you know, but Dr. Shefali is Indian, you know, born, brought up, but has lived how many years abroad now?
I think almost
30 years.
Yeah.
So you've had, and you come back. I know that you come back to India often. Your family is here. So I think if there's someone here who has a really beautiful view of India and not India or overseas, what are you seeing as the biggest differences between how we are being able to radically awaken versus how, you know, America is, for example, which is your home? And therefore, what would you say to us to really start to push us in the direction for us to be able to discover our power more than we are currently?
Well, I already believe that the woman in India holds all the power. She may just not realize it to the extent that she could. The biggest difference I see in both cultures is that the Indian woman, I think, takes on so much on her plate by trying to be the good girl and the good, you know, the good in every category. And I think in her attempt to be good, she sometimes forsakes her authenticity. So my greatest wish for the Indian woman would be to burn the idea and the ideal of being good and replace it with the courage and the audacity to be authentic.
Thank you. And finally, Dr. Shefali, my last question is, and I think maybe somewhere you touched upon it right now, but you know, if you had a magic wand and you could hypnotize everybody here, men and women of all ages and backgrounds and roles that they are playing, what is the one single thought or a sense of conviction you would want everybody to leave this space with?
If I could hypnotize you, I would hypnotize you to, after the hypnosis, you would wake up and you would realize that everything you believed you were before the hypnosis was probably an illusion. And you get to recreate right here, right now, and be the architect of your next vision for yourself. And that vision is completely fluid and in your power. And no one needs to dictate to you what that vision needs to be. So all of you, close your eyes right now, because I'm going to hypnotize you right now. And the next moment you open your eyes, imagine that you could literally metamorphosize into any vision possible for yourself. That would be my greatest wish for you.
Thank you so much. Now that everyone's eyes are open, we're going to test you all over drinks and dinner to make sure that hypnosis works.
Thank you. Keep the hypnosis going. Yes. Thank you so much, Tara.
Thank you so very much for that. Thank you.
What an insightful and thought-provoking conversation. Thank you so much. A huge thank you to Dr. Shefali Saburi and Tara Singh Vachani for your wisdom and perspectives. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we've seen bold ideas, real action, and inspiring leadership driving the fight for gender parity in the workplace. From powerful discussions to game-changing initiatives, we've tackled the hard truths and celebrated the trailblazers who are shaping a more inclusive future. But this isn't just about tonight. The work doesn't stop here. Every conversation we've had, every commitment made pushes us closer to a world where leadership knows no gender. So let's keep the momentum going. stay engaged, stay vocal, and most importantly, keep pushing for change, because the future isn't just female, it's fair, fearless, and forward. And now get ready for an electrifying finale as we welcome back the very talented Manasi Scott to the stage for yet another performance. But before we invite Manasi on stage, let's once again thank our partners for their support. Presenting partner HSBC India, co-presenting partner Cognizant, knowledge partner the Udeti Foundation, industry partner FICCI, and associate partner Reliance Industries Limited. And now please give a huge round of applause for Manasi Scott.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've actually been asking all the ladies to stay back, stay back, stay back. I'm singing. Thank you so much for having me, and what wonderful conversations and discourses. And the future definitely is women and female and forward. I did do a woman-centric song in the beginning. Right now, I thought we'd just have a lot of fun. But let me, you can go for it. Let me introduce the band. That's Razak Sheikh on the dhol and the duff. That's our youngest member in the band, Enrico Rodriguez. And that's Karanat on lead. Let's go. Yeah.
HSBC presents CNBC-TV18's Future Female Forward.